Next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, June 28, 2019 at 9 a.m. at the Island View Restaurant, 35468 Tea Time Circle, Sebring, Florida, 33872. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. Consent agenda. The minutes of the retirement committee meeting held on August 30th are the only item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? Chrissy?
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilpin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hotelling?
Yes.
President Branson?
Yes. Action agenda. Resolution number 2019-05/24-20. A resolution of the Sun and Lake of Sebring Improvement District to approve the recommendation of the Retirement Plan Committee.
Move approval.
Second.
Any board discussion?
I'll give you guys some highlights. Omar DeJesus, Finance Director. Back in September 2018, the district petitioned the board to create a retirement plan committee to review the district's retirement plan that was in place. Over the past 6 months, the retirement plan committee has met 3 times to not only review the district's current plan, but we've also received 4 proposals from other vendors and carriers as far as fees and structure that we reviewed, and had a consultant also give us a recommendation. The committee has finally made a final recommendation to the board for review. Their recommendation is for us to move forward with Nationwide as our new retirement plan vendor. After review, Nationwide has been able to offer some items that ICMA has not been able to come back with. So we requested the ICMA relook at their plan fees and fiduciary responsibility. Unfortunately, ICMA declined to reduce any of their fees on the current plan, and also do not have any sort of fiduciary responsibility mechanism in place to assist the district in that aspect. So Nationwide was able to come in with lower plan fees for the district, and they also have a Morningstar co-fiduciary application that assists the district monitor its investment lineup on a quarterly and annual basis. So Morningstar will now look at the performance of every fund in the lineup, give us recommendations as to whether a fund should be put on a watch list or removed from the plan, give recommendations on what new funds should be implemented in lieu of that replacement. So that's a nice new feature to ensure that our employees are having investment options that are performing and viable options for them in their retirement plan. There's also another recommendation that I wanted to highlight. There is a recommendation to increase the district's contribution on behalf of the employees. So currently the district matches up to 5% of the employees match. We are making a recommendation, the retirement plan committee is making a recommendation to bump that up to 6%. So the employees will contribute 5, the district will contribute 6. Basically, it's going to be a wash inside the budget. We cut out the short-term disability benefit for the employees, which saved the district about $12,000. We did that probably about 6 months ago. So out of that $12,000, there's a $10,000 offset here. So basically, it becomes a wash by doing this. So we're just taking one benefit and give it to them in another form. I think those are the main highlights as far as the transition Nationwide. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I got 2 questions. How many people does this affect during the plan?
So we have 30 full-time employees who are eligible. I believe only 27 participate, so we have about 3 employees who do not currently participate.
Okay, and then the other question is I'm sorry, I just got this yesterday, obviously. The name of the company that you're recommending are going to pass on better fees to us, to the district, correct?
Correct.
You said?
So currently on average...
But over what period of time are they guaranteeing those numbers for a period of time, or could they come back next year after a year and hike them back to where it...
No, so they've given us set fees for each of their lineups.
Yeah.
In any instance, if those fees do go up, they need to notify us.
Do we have
So
like,
there's no guarantee not in writing that those fees will stay the same for a number period of time.
should there be?
I don't know that that's possible, but we could
I
look
don't
into
know.
that, yeah.
I mean, I'm not
In
that
essence,
familiar with
those fees are paid by the employee anyway.
Correct.
Correct.
So it's not a district-paid employee.
It's not a district obligation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said they're going to save the district money.
We are.
Right. So the fees are paid by the district. The contributions are the only district-paid
Right.
fees that go into this plan.
Okay, so the fees that the district pays,
Correct.
are they guaranteed for a certain amount of time or no? I'm not sure I understand.
So all the fees from the plan are paid by employees based off their balance, account balance. The
Oh, so
only
you're just matching 5% no matter what. Okay.
correct. The only fee that goes by the district is the matching contribution, which is now going from 5 to 6%. So it's being recommended to go from 5 to 6%.
One additional issue is that if you have a retirement plan, you have an obligation to advise your employees properly. Under the ICMA?
Yeah.
Under the ICMA plan, that was basically our total obligation.
Correct.
This plan has Morningstar basically as a co-trustee, if you will. So we don't eliminate our obligation, but we do have some assistance, put it that way.
Right.
It's a good deal for us all the way around, and it's a good deal for the employees. So I don't see I think it's a win-win.
Can you clarify the matching? Because they put in 5 and we put in 6. If they put in 0, we put in 0.
No, so the tier, the first percent that they match, we're going to match 2%.
Okay.
And then going forward, if they put 2, we'll put 3. So it's a added 1, but they have to contribute starting at that 1. If they put in 0, we match 0.
Okay.
So it's starting at the 1%.
Okay. So we're
This, this isn't unusual. It's pretty easy to explain to an employee. If you put in $1, I'll give you 2.
yeah.
And it's an attempt to try to encourage them to save.
Yeah. I came from a plan that they put in 25 cents for every dollar I put in.
Does this disrupt, I mean, is there a disruption going from one company to another company as far as withdrawals out of, I mean?
So there's going to be a transition period. We expect this to probably get fully in place by October 1st. So within the next, we have to give ICMA a 60-day written notice of cancellation. We have to set up new accounts with Nationwide. There's going to be some blackout dates where they roll that money over into their new accounts, so they won't be able to make any changes or switch fund lineups during that blackout period. But it should be pretty seamless. We're going to have Nationwide, if approved, has committed to come on site, help every employee set up a new account, pick their fund investment lineup, sit with them on a one-on-one basis, and go through that process. So that was another big component of this is ICMA, we have one rep who's out of North Carolina who we never see, and is only available by phone communication. Some of our employees have never even heard from her. With Nationwide, they're committed to come here on site once every quarter. So we'll have good customer service. Our employees will be able to monitor their retirement plan, make sure it's performing the way they want. If they want to make changes as far as conservative or moderate, they can do that, and they have someone who they can talk to in person and go through that process.
One of the issues is you can't really take any money out of this without having a tax consequence, so you can borrow against it, if you will, and pay yourself back. So as far as withdrawals, it probably isn't an issue. You have to deal with the loans against, and they've committed to convert those as well.
If an employee resigns, is there a waiting period for them to get the matching portion of the money, or are they eligible right away for everything?
So with an employee resigning, there's 2 things we look at. First is their vesting schedule, how much they vested. So the district's vesting schedule is 50% after 1 year, 100% after 2 years. So if they're completely vested, then as soon as we notify the carrier that they're terminated, then they have full rights to determine whether they want to withdraw, roll it over. They have full authority to do that. Now, if they're only 50% vested, they'd only have the ability to move 50% of that.
But there's no waiting period on the matching part. Whatever they're eligible for.
Correct.
Again.
Correct.
After they're vested, that's correct.
Yeah.
But they have to be here 2 years to be fully vested.
Correct.
That's what we have currently in place. Same vesting schedule.
I mean, it's a small amount. Some companies do it differently.
We tried not to do anything negative to the employees.
No, I think it's a
hard.
very generous plan and an aggressive vesting schedule. So it doesn't encourage long-term employment as much as some vesting programs do.
Right.
Yeah, from the vesting side, it is very, very lucrative. From the matching contribution side, the plan was in place since 2004 and really hasn't been changed since. One of the comparisons that we give is FRS. You know, as a government employee, a lot of employees work for governments because of Florida retirement. And
Sure.
Florida retirement does a cost of living adjustment annually, and I think they're matching now 7.92%, and then the employee has to put in 3%. So they're almost at 11% total contribution. So, you know, we're still a little bit behind that, but I think, you know, having the retirement plan committee in place now and having the ability to review it every year, I think gives us a good starting point moving forward.
Just one comment. We're embarking on a different employment picture in this county than we've seen with the new steel company moving in, and they're one of the premier employers in the country. So the competition for good people is going to get stiffer, and anything we can do to make them feel better about being Sun and Lakes employees is the right thing to do in terms of employee retention. Any further board comment? Any public comment? Chrissy?
Supervisor Brooks?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilpin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hoteling?
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel?
Yes.
President Branson?
Yes. Resolution number 2019-05/24-21. A resolution of the Sun and Lake Sebring Improvement District to approve revisions to the district policy manual.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Good morning, Supervisors. We have two changes from the last meeting when we presented the draft policy manual. And on page 21, I apologize, I removed the finance director clause without the strike-through. I'm sorry. So we'll take you to page 21. I want to make sure that's correct. So it reads that budget amendment should require only the approval of the general manager. It did read of the general manager and the finance director.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The next change is on page 46. Paragraphs H1203 and H1204 were amended. First, the 1203 paragraph for outside golf tournaments may be scheduled at any time, provided that in January, February, and March, one course shall be available for the full day on tournament days for golf member play. Exceptions must be approved by the Board of Supervisors as added. And then any outside food and beverage related to tournaments with the approval of the Board of Supervisors. And then paragraph 1204, the strike-through on golf management, and added the Board of Supervisors. Is there anything that we missed on those two paragraphs?
Just so I understand. So, for example, like when we used to have the Veterans Tournament and Dave from 18 East would cook hot dogs on the side, somebody would now need to get that to the board for us to approve.
What tournament was that? Which one did you mention?
The
Veterans?
I'm just giving an example. The Veterans Tournament, Dave from 18 East.
That would be an example.
So
Yes, sir.
he would have to come to us and ask for permission. Well, if somebody,
Or Andy could give the board a list of upcoming tournaments with outside food and beverage. I think that would be appropriate for the year, but yes, the board would have to approve that.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Joe, I just wanted to ask, and it's probably for the next golf when Cliff's here, but wasn't he going to give us something for January, February, March about the cost and how many tournaments we could have? And at our meeting 2 weeks ago, I never saw anything like that.
During the next budget meeting for
He's
golf?
going to do it?
Yes,
the
sir.
next one?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. That's all.
Any public comment? Chrissy?
Supervisor Gilpin,
Yes.
Supervisor Hoteling,
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel,
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks,
Yes.
President Branson.
Yes. Okay, item C, discussion of Highland County Sheriff's Office extra duty agreement and application.
All right, Supervisors, as you probably know, the county rejected, or the Sheriff's Department rejected our application with the hold harmless and indemnification portion stricken out. I talked to Garrett Roberts, the Sheriff's Department's attorney. He said that is pretty standard language. There was, I guess, some sort of an incident back a couple years ago, and the statewide Sheriff's Departments, basically sent out saying this is language that we're recommending be included in all, extra duty applications. And so we basically said it's, take it or leave it. If you want the extra duty application, you've got to sign it as is. So that's where we sit, unfortunately. I've got some questions about the actual enforceability of it, but based on my understanding, this would only come into play if an incident occurred while the officer was performing the extra duty service, and that while he was performing that duty, it resulted in some sort of incident happened, and then a lawsuit was filed that would include the Sheriff's Department. If the Sheriff's Department is named in any such lawsuit, it would be the district's, responsibility according to this clause to hold the Sheriff's Department harmless and basically defend that litigation. That's basically how it worked. What are the chances of that happening? Anything's possible. Seems highly unlikely to me based on the type of extra duty that they're performing. If they're handing out tickets, watching for speeders and people running stop signs. So I don't know what sort of incident could happen, but there it is.
Okay, I had two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is specifically what you just said. If we say this is what we want, specific traffic enforcement, and he goes and shoots somebody for doing something or whatever, I'm assuming that would be the sheriff's liability rather than ours.
That would be our position. That would be the position that we would take, is that, he was hired to do this job, and as soon as he did anything other than that job, he was performing for the Sheriff's Department. And it says right in the application that the Sheriff's Department has the ability to pull that officer off duty at any time. So I think that's, we would have a very good defense as to why we're not going to come back and, indemnify or hold them harmless if something like that were to occur.
And the second question, it requires our insurance company to subrogate. I'm assuming they don't have an issue with that.
Well, I'd say they can require that. We can give them notice and say, look, here's what we've been asked to do. That I don't know that they've got any legal responsibility to do that or to agree to that. We can't force them to. So all we can do is put our insurance carrier on notice that, hey, this is something that we're doing.
Have we done that?
No, we haven't done that yet, but I'm going to reach out to them. Like David said, they have no requirement to do so, but we can definitely notify them.
And if they say they are not willing to support that?
I've been trying to imagine a set of circumstances where all this would come to fruition. I don't know that I've been able to come up with that yet. So, but it'll be a very interesting conglomeration of paperwork, I'm sure, if something like that were to happen. But
I mean, that's kind of where I am. It looks to me like this is a pretty,
I think this is something that they put in there for so that 99% of the people, when a private entity, third-party entity hires an extra duty officer, they're not going to have the resources that the district has to come back and fight them. And like I say, do I honestly think that anything's going to happen? No, I don't. I don't foresee that. It's highly unlikely that something like this, some sort of incident.
What would our policy limits be on something like this, Tanya? Do you know right off the bat?
I don't. We'll have to research it. We can research it.
Yeah, we might have to take a look at that, because if something like this happens, it's going to be a couple of $1 million or something. I mean, they'd have to run over some kid or something. I mean, I could see it possibly happening.
We'll reach out to the insurance company and receive all that information from them.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about this stuff, but there must be a reason they want us to sign that.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a reason it's in there, and like I say, that's like I say, 99% of the people that are going to execute something like this, they're not going to come back and say, no, I'm not going to adhere to that. I've got questions about its enforceability. Like I say, this says that these are going to be district employees. When employment is not something that you just say, this is my employer, this is not my employee. It's based on control, and the sheriff's department still has full control of these officers. Right. So, I mean, there's no set of circumstances that I can foresee where an officer that's handing out tickets or monitoring traffic is going to create some sort of infraction that's going to result in the district having to indemnify the sheriff's department. The only way that I can see anything happening is if he does something else other than what we're hiring him to do that results in an incident. And as soon as he varies or changes from what we've hired him to do, he's no longer our employee. He's actually a sheriff's department employee.
I've been in this circumstance hiring off-duty policemen as guards, and I had a similar hold harmless, if you will. But I also got a rider on the insurance policy, and I think they covered us up to $5 million. And it wasn't that expensive because you were talking about trained policemen. But there was a lot more risk there as well. I mean, there were guns and potentially guns involved.
So where does that leave us? Are we going to not sign this until we talk to our insurance people? And are we looking at potentially?
Well, I don't think we have an obligation to even notify the insurance people until we execute it. That's when it becomes an actual condition that we do that. It's a condition of the contract, so we can notify if we're willing to sign it as unchanged. We would execute that, and then we'd notify our insurance carrier that we had done it.
So are you looking for a motion that we?
I think procedurally the best way to do this, it was resolution 2019-05/10-18, the board approved that it be executed with the hold harmless and indemnification section stricken. And so I think procedurally we would do a motion for reconsideration. One of you five would do a motion for reconsideration to execute it, with the hold harmless and indemnification provision, then the board could vote.
I would make that motion subject to our insurance company, subject to our reviewing our insurance liability and making sure it's sufficient in management's opinion.
No problem.
I know it says it. Where does it say that what the guy's going to do, the cop? I know it's in here. I just can't find it real quick.
It says we tell him.
Duties requested of deputy under a third line under paragraph 7.
Well, that doesn't say what the police officer is going to do, does it?
Just traffic.
For traffic enforcement.
Oh, so that traffic. Oh, so we just take that to assume warnings, tickets.
Yeah, and traffic
enforcement, which gets back to my objection that this is really their job.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we're not asking them to do something that's not part of their job. We're just asking them to do more of it, and we're offering to pay for it. And I don't want to delay this another month while we argue about it, because I think we need to get it going. But I do think we need to take this up with the county, because the county is the boss of the sheriff. The sheriff is the sheriff. The county is the boss of the sheriff, and the county needs to know that, their job is to make sure that the sheriff is patrolling the county sufficiently. They're not patrolling the county sufficiently in our view, but we're willing to pay for that, but we shouldn't take the liability for it. And I think we should put the county on notice and see if the county can put some pressure on the sheriff's department. And if you want me to address it with Ron Handley, I'm happy to, but I don't think we should just say, okay, we'll accept your terms. We need to fight it, I think, further with the county.
I don't think anybody disagrees that they ought to be doing more of what they're doing, but if they're not going to stop people from speeding on 27, they're sure not going to do it on Sunrise Drive, unless we pay them to do it. So whatever we need to do to get it done.
Yeah, I'll second it if somebody explain to me what the hell we're doing. I mean.
So basically, because at the last board meeting, the resolution that was passed by the board said.
Yeah, I understand all that, but I got some of my fellow supervisors that are, I'm kind of like Neil, or I think Dan is too. I want it done and start now.
Yeah.
So, is that what we're doing?
That's what you're doing.
Okay.
Correct.
I'll second it.
I'll second with Dan, but I want the insurance company to get back to us first before we implement. I agree with that suggestion.
I don't know that that's practical.
Well,
We can always rescind this. We're not obligated beyond.
The motion I made included Tanya talking to the insurance company and make sure we have sufficient coverage.
Right. But is that before it's signed?
Yeah.
So it's not just talking to the insurance company, it's making sure that we have sufficient coverage, and you're defining sufficient as $5 million?
I said management's discretion, but that would be a good number.
So before, the employer shall require its insurance carriers with respect to all insurance policies to waive all rights of subrogation against the Highlands County Sheriff's Office incident to such employment. It's inside the. Do you want us to check that today? This is going to delay another month.
No, we're approving it contingent on
contingent upon their approval. Okay.
Is that
Yes.
acceptable?
All right, so that's a motion and a second, so we need public comment.
Have public comment.
I'm Steve Chismus, and I came because I saw in a letter that came out that they're going to be hiring the sheriff's department. And I like to save money. I see my bills going up from you guys, annually. And I'm amazed to see that the sheriff's department backdoors making money off of us. A lot of decisions are made politically, like slapping a person on the back, hey, come on, I need you to come out a little more, and things like that. And they're driving us, and that kind of bothers me.
It bothers all of us, so, but there's no solution to it.
I think it's a really good idea to talk to Ron Handley, and we ought to figure out when the next sheriff's election is. Maybe we could get somebody to come here and explain it to us.
Well, I'm certainly familiar with the fact that the county has a budget and the sheriff has a budget, and there's only so much they can do. I have a real problem with the fact that we're willing to pay them to do their job, but I'm not real happy about having to take a liability because of it.
Agreed.
We're all right there.
so where are we?
We're taking a vote.
The motion is to approve the unamended sheriff's agreement contingent on assuring that our insurance company will cover our liability.
If any.
If any. I don't know that the motion and the second does not have anything specific into it about taking this further up the county. So I'll make that motion separately because I think it needs to be done. So we're just voting on signing this agreement as it is, contingent on making sure that we have the insurance.
Supervisor Hotelling?
Yes.
Supervisor Stiegel,
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks,
Yes.
Supervisor Gilpin,
Yes.
President Branson.
Yes.
And I would like to move that we assign somebody, whether it's a board member or staff, to contact Ron Handley and take this to the county and try to get resolved that special districts that should be patrolled by the county shouldn't have to sign liabilities to get the county sheriff to come patrol the roads.
I can take the lead on that. I'd like to also speak with Sheriff Blackman as well of what our concerns are, along with Mr. Hanley.
And we, you know, if we can't make progress, I'd like somebody from the county to come and explain why.
And Tanya, could you, if you get any comments or anything during this month we don't meet, let us know through the emails or something, what's going on with it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You made that as a motion?
I did.
I will second.
All right, we have to do public comment.
Any public comment?
Supervisor Stiegel,
Yes.
Supervisor Brooks,
Sure. Yes.
Supervisor Gilpin,
Yes.
Supervisor Hoteling,
Yes.
President Branson.
Yes. Okay, add-on items,
None?
petitions and communications,
None?
staff reports.
Mike, can you tell the board about our hole that opened up on the corner of Urbino and Navarre this week?
Yes. There's a manhole that opened up. One of our guys was going by, saw a big hole, stopped, started checking out. We called the contractor in right away because it was that big. It was something that we couldn't handle. Right now they're down there. They've been there since for 2 days. They hope to finish up tomorrow. It's a pipe. It's a water pipe blowing into the manhole, and it's creating a sinkhole. And if you go down by there, you would think a bomb hit it. It's all sugar sand, so they had to open up hole a lot bigger than usual. The road is closed, but hopefully it'll be done tomorrow. I'm supposed to meet him in a little while to give me an update on it, but it's emergency. So if anyone gets any calls, it's on. But no, it's right by the lift station, and it started little, and it's pretty big right now. And they were, it's big.
What was causing the water?
A broken pipe. It's the old. It's in Unit 2, the old part of Sun Lake. So, and that's usually where we get our breaks.
Did it have anything to do with the work on the lift station?
No. So.
And unfortunately, the pipe is how many feet down? 10 to 14 feet?
10 feet, yeah.
It's not just
yeah.
6 feet down.
It's
so
down there.
It's a challenge.
I don't know. And I was amazed. I was telling Tanya this morning. It's all sugar sand, and I've never seen it. But I'm from back east, so I've never. I mean, you would think you were sitting on the beach. It's that good. So I mean, so they got to get bigger and bigger, and so whatever.
Do we have any feel at all for what this is going to cost us?
It's basically materials and the materials and cost of labor, he told me. And I just told him to keep it down. I am keeping account of how long they've been there and how many guys they have there. So, and they've been pretty good with us. It's KDL. They responded within about an hour of the call, so it helped. That helped us. But the road is closed.
Are we looking at 50,000 or $5 million?
No. I don't think we'll be over 20. No. I mean, from past experience. I mean, unless they're now and they find something major, worse that we're sitting here. But I mean, I think it'd be under 20.
Mike, I got another question. I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Supervisor Brooks asked you about the grass on number 10.
By Hornicks.
Yeah, by Hornicks thing. Is that on your schedule? 'Cause
we'll be getting to that probably this week. The course is closed. a matter of fact, Tanya and I just drove by it yesterday and we talked about that. So I'll get in there and clean that up a little.
Because it looks so much better when that's cut.
Mm-hmm.
So
You know,
maybe it should
we've
be
been
put
very
on there
busy.
like a grass cutting
Right.
or something. So.
Michael, I agree with you,
Okay.
you know. We've been very busy. We've been doing the bathrooms and stuff, so I've been pulling some guys around.
I just wanted to make sure.
So,
Forget about it.
The bathrooms are a real addition, what you're doing to them.
Yeah. Had a lot of nice comments. Have you, Dan?
yeah, I think everybody's seen them so far. You know, there's a lot more work there's a lot more work than we thought originally. The plumbing's terrible in those buildings, so we replaced the plumbing in the first one, and now we're in the second. We're also going to be fixing with the ice machine. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there's an ice machine on a folding table there. We're going to be taking that out and cleaning all that up, so all the ice machines will kind of look the same, and then we built in. Well, so next year when the snowbirds come down, they'll be real surprised.
How about the people who live here year-round?
You'll be surprised in September. I said next year.
I do have a question. You were here last meeting. Have we figured out who's going to clean the bathrooms inside and out? Because that's been a problem, and I have not really gotten an answer that makes me...
They have Billy Casper has a person that rides around early in the morning.
Well, they should be fired.
Well, okay.
I'm just telling you.
The bathrooms were in tough shape, okay? The floors were a broom finish. A broom finish is when you finish concrete, okay? It's just a broom finish and then they paint it. It's really, really hard to keep clean. The walls in the past were cinder block walls. You know, I mean, no, Ray used to. Santa Cruz not doing a good job.
What about the water machines?
What?
What about the water machines, drinking machines? They're filthy. What's wrong with, I don't know, why can't we clean those? I'm just saying, I think we have a...
It's a Casper employee.
It's a Casper employee.
Well, Casper didn't even want to talk. They're pointing towards you.
Ray, we're going to improve that part of it. We're going to build everything in, and we're going to put the filters inside an area where it's not, you know, outside. I mean, all those areas will be cleaned up.
All right, let me address this towards you. I'd like to know who's going to take care of them and when we'll start to see them be cleaner. I understand he's going to redo them. I understand that. But an ice machine that's got crud all over it is not acceptable.
Understood.
Okay, so I'd just like to know who's going to do it and when we should see some improvement.
It should be immediately. I'm going to talk to Cliff, and
That'd be good.
BCG is going to have to handle that.
And Tanya, I have just, I'm not piling on, but number 15 on Deer, that water machine has been out for, I don't know how long. And have you heard anything about it?
No, sir, I have not.
Okay. Well, if you get a chance, ask Cliff, but if they can't fix it, we get a new one or something, because it's been, God, I think 6 weeks.
I didn't know anything about it. First I heard about it.
Well, they've been putting a jug of water and ice out there. But it just hadn't been fixed, and I thought we were, you know, all it takes is, I think Palmer is the one that does it.
Right.
Speaking of jugs of water, they have removed the one from Turtle Run between 9 and 18. As hot as it is, we should be putting it back out there.
I thought they took the jugs down because of sanitary reasons, right?
I don't know.
Isn't that what we were told?
That was back a while ago. But we got to do something. There's 2 places you can get water out there.
Okay.
Good morning. We are working on summer camps. We're full swing. We've taken all of the reservations for that, so that's moving right along. We have had to hire a number of employees for summer camp, so thankfully our camp director is returning, so that's wonderful. That helps us in our planning. We have a new assistant camp director, and as of right now, we have 3 folks that are coming in as camp counselors, looking for potentially one more. We'd like to have about 4 camp counselors, and then we've got the director and the assistant. So that's something we're working on, but we've had the vast majority accept, so we are ready for summer camp to start in a couple of weeks.
How are the sign-ups?
Sign-ups are good. Have we had to go to a waiting list? So we're not to the waiting list yet, but that's pretty much to be expected. So with camp, each week may fluctuate. You don't have to sign up for all 8 weeks at once. You can sign up for various weeks. So it kind of ebbs and flows. Obviously at the beginning, maybe not be so high. Maybe at the end it's a little lower. Right in the middle it stays pretty high. But I have the spreadsheets. If that's something you're interested in seeing, I'm happy to send it to you.
Okay.
How did that I wasn't here, the ING day that you had here, the conference day that you had here, ING day that you had here this past week, wasn't it?
Was the international golf? That I'm not sure of. I haven't spoken with them since we got them the bags that you and I talked about.
Didn't they have something here at the course?
We had a demo day.
Huh?
Demo day.
I was just wondering, how'd that go?
I didn't get a report on it and see. There was a lot of people out there, I know, but did anybody attend?
I did.
No?
Can you ask Cliff to let us know how it went since we had an event? I'd be curious. And then, I don't know, is this the right time to talk about world design marketing, or should we do that later?
I have that on my list to talk about, but I sent everyone an email yesterday, but we can talk about it now. It's fine.
Well, I mean, I read it, and I still can't figure out what we're getting, other than they're going to tell us how to spend some advertising money.
Later.
Huh?
Later. First, they're going to tell us what to spend it on.
And then they're going to, all right, first they're going to tell us what they're going to spend it on, and then we're going to spend it. Is that the whole deal? That we went through all this for that?
Not necessarily. So the next piece that's coming, the creative development, is the actual, I hate to call it tangible because it's obviously online, but like the marketing campaign concept. So what they're going to do is what they're working on right now are different designs or concepts that we can take so that when we do these media placements or when we do our advertising, we have that consistent theme that we're staying with. So maybe it's, this awesome punchline. They're coming up with the campaign itself. So then what happens is once we're happy with the campaign, once we're happy with, things even like the color schemes they're going with, the photography they're using, the things that they're putting together that are the actual visuals that we're going to push out for people to see, and this is how we're going to advertise Sun and Lake. Once we're happy with that, then yes, they are going to give us recommendations of where we need to put these media placements and where they feel like our money is best suited to get in front of the people that we need to market to in front of our target demographic. So those are two pieces they kind of happen in tandem. So the creative development, actually I think they're kind of ready to show us some concepts maybe even next week. And then we kind of work on it from there and say, yeah, I really like that, or, I'm not really crazy about the way that sounds, or I don't really like that tagline, or can we change this picture? We're going to tweak it so that the campaign itself and what we're pushing out there is a true reflection of Sun and Lake and how we want to represent our community.
This is kind of a budget question, we can get into it later, you tell me. So you allocated $25,000 in extra for advertising. Are we kidding ourselves?
Well, and right now, that may not be, that obviously isn't a number that we have to put there. They're going to give us a recommendation of where they think we need to spend the money. We choose how much money we want to put in media placement. If we don't want to put even a fraction of that in media placement, then we don't. Obviously, the higher the media spend, the more advertisement we're putting out there. The lower the media spend, the less money we have to put in these. So, obviously, digital billboards or billboards are very expensive, and you have to pay by the day or by the week, or obviously you pay per views. So that's honestly that's a number that's flexible based on how much money we want to put into media placement.
And then is there a cost to them going forward? Are they just giving us all this and walking away, or do we retain them, and at what cost do we retain them? Or?
So as of right now, so we had the cost, obviously, that went along with the RFP, and that comes with the concepts and the designs and the campaigns and that piece. Now they do, I'm going to assume that there is some amount that they may, you know what, honestly, I'm going to have to follow up on that because I don't have the exact answer. I know that we pay for the media placement, and that's a pass-through cost. They said that they send us the invoice for that, so we don't pay them for the media placement. We physically pay the invoices for media going forward.
Typically, there's a spread.
Yeah,
And
usually
they charge you so much per placement.
The agency gets a percentage, but sometimes they're able to take that off the gross billing. So
exactly, but the issue gets to $25,000 is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
But you got to see the concept before. I'm going to say we ought to spend more than that, or
correct,
or we're supposed to spend a quarter.
Right, and they will give us as part of this package, as part of this project, they do give us a recommendation, and they said that it is a physical document that we'll be able to review of recommended media spend. So that number right now, we don't have the document from them yet. So that's.
Are they looking to stay local advertising, or are we going out of state, or?
It's not necessarily all local advertising. No, they are looking. We had talked about reaching target demographics. I think it's in their last, not review, but like the creative work plan, they kind of discuss our target demographic, and they call it the cold states.
It was. But it's typically mostly internet driven. It's not a lot of print,
right,
the way I read it.
Digital is fast. Digital is substantially more inexpensive. So your money goes farther with digital. So.
Okay, and the website, they're going to tackle that soon?
Yes. Yeah. So basically they're kind of waiting with this creative development. They want to make sure that we're happy with the design elements and the design features before they go and dive straight into a website, and then we go, oh my gosh, we hated that. We hate your design concept. So once they have an idea of which way we want to go there, then yes, that is one of the next things on the horizon.
And who? I don't want to go all day on this. We'll do it another time. I think we're wasting our money. The little money that we have, I've never seen a marketing plan for $25,000. I've already seen one for $38,000, and I think the board decided that was a waste of money. So I don't know how we're going to do anything with $25,000. So.
Well, you always waste 90% of your advertising budget. The only question is which 10% is working. So if you either do nothing or you do something. I don't know that I'm happy with 25. I don't know that I would. 100 is probably too little, honestly. But until you see what it looks like, until you're sure, hey, I believe this, you don't know whether you want to spend anything or not. And I think we're really too preliminary at this point in time to.
Yeah, I think the 25 is nothing more than a holding spot. We're looking for a recommendation from them as to what we really should be spending, and then we'll make decisions based on that. We may or may not accept their recommendation.
You can't hold very much for $25,000
no,
in today's world.
No, you can't.
And one other question: who's going to be the contact person for Center Lake?
With WDM?
No, with us.
So, to communicate to the board?
Advertisement about we're a great place, blah 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 blah. Certainly, somebody's got to. If they want to contact us, who are they going to contact?
The follow-up, right? So you're referring to once the marketing's working, where are they going from there, right? Where is the potential customer going from there?
That's the question.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we've kind of been discussing is looking at what that travel path is going to look like. So I don't know that we have that completely set in stone yet, but that is something that we know we have to have before our marketing campaign launches, because we need somewhere for them to go when we have potential leads.
So we're talking about another person?
No.
Who's going to do it?
Well, it kind of looks like me. I'll go ahead and raise my hand.
More than likely, yes, but we're going to...
I wouldn't rule out another person yet. I think we need to look at the plan, figure out how we're going to implement it.
Yeah, right now we just don't know until we finish up with this project, so...
We just need to...
Well, we surely should have an idea, don't you think? The budgets, we're doing budgets. Okay, fine. Are we going to be able to fix, this is my pet peeve, trying to sign on to see my account? Is that ever going to be addressed with the websites, or is that just going to stay like it is?
The new one's working well.
Huh?
The new one's working well.
Working well.
We have a new,
I have to do 2 sign-ons and go through upteen ways to find my account.
That's not a district website. That is Billy Casper.
mine's 2 clicks.
Huh?
Mine's 2 clicks.
Yours is what? 2 what?
2 clicks.
Mine's 2 sign-ons. Am I doing it wrong?
I don't know.
You see your bill in 1 sign-on?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got to show me.
I can do that.
100 hours.
Got to show me.
I got an answer to that if you like.
Yeah, somebody show me.
Yeah, Pat Holmes, a resident. I had the same problem, and I went to Andy. There was an invitation sent to you, as it was to me, and I did not see it. And so I went to Andy, and Andy straightened the whole thing out for me so I can see my statements, make tea times 3 weeks in advance, and everything. But if you could talk to Andy, he can help you out. Because, as they say, it's an outside vendor that's taking care of
Don't you have to
this.
sign on to the system first?
Yes,
And then you have to sign on to see your bill.
right.
That's 2 sign-ons.
Well, once you're on it, you're okay. Then you have to log in each time you go into it. It says log in, or there's 2 different things at the top. You have to hit the log in. And but if you have any trouble, just see Andy, and he helped me, and it's tremendous once he got me up and running.
I saw Cliff, and he couldn't help us, could he?
When I tried it, now that Google has picked up on my name and password, I told it just to save it so I don't even have to log in the first time. But if I were to log into my account to see my statements, then that would be the second login. But if you tell Google to save your password and information, then you won't have to log in that first time. It'll go immediately right to your page.
Google, nobody saves my passwords. I don't do that.
That's fine.
I believe that's what Pat is trying to say, right? I mean, on the main page, it'll save your information. So as soon as
Obviously, the problem's not going to be fixed. That's
Well,
fine.
talk to Andy. Sounds like there may be a
It's 2
fix.
sign-ons, that's all I'm telling you.
Yeah, just saying, talk to Andy. He may have a fix for you. If he doesn't, then probably it'll never be solved.
I don't think it's ever going to be solved. It's going. Thank you, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, I talked to Tina earlier, DFC, all of the defaults are in. We'll be moving for a final default judgment sometime in the next week or 2, and so for, conceivably, that Unit 12 foreclosure should be completed with I'm guessing a foreclosure sale date sometime towards the end of July. So that property most likely will be back in district hands by the end of July. Tanya and I had a meeting along with President Branson at the county regarding our zoning changes. The district attorney was there. The county attorney was there, as was one of the zoning supervisors, and then Ben Dunn, who's one of the directors over zoning. And we basically left it at, we addressed some of their concerns, and I think we left it at Mr. Dunn is going to have communications with the county commissioners individually. Obviously, Commissioner Handley is on our side with this. They may take a different route. We were proposing creating brand new zoning, land use and zoning regulations, and they've come up with a different plan, I think, using a flexible unit development. But basically our position was as long as we get what we want, we don't care how it gets done. They did say that we may have to. They were concerned with, I think one of the things we talked about was garages and then accessory structures and fencing. They were concerned about the enforceability of some of that and including that in the land use regulations. So that's something that hopefully will not go away, but we may, conceivably lose. But hopefully once Mr. Dunn has his conversations with the commissioners, we'll have some idea of how that's going to move forward. And then lastly, Tanya just let me know that she got the engagement letter from Lewis Longman Walker regarding the Tanglewood and Fifth Third opinion stuff, and so I'll look that over with her later on today or early next week, and they'll get started on that. Any questions?
Yeah, I got one. Could you give me an update on Vivian Castro? I'm just curious.
Ms. Castro has a very interesting attorney. We did a foreclosure against her a while back, And I think I explained to the district there was a window. The district is allowed to foreclose going back 5 years, with the 5-year statute of limitations is based on the delinquency date. The way the April 1st is our delinquency date. Anything after, and so once April 1st comes, if it's more than 5 years old, it drops off of our tax rolls, our assessment rolls. There was a window where we missed a drop-off date, and some of the demand letters that went out included uncollectible assessments. That's all now been corrected, and how we're moving forward. And we're re-foreclosing against Mrs. Castro, and her attorney thinks that we've done something incorrectly, which we haven't. In fact, in my opinion, they've misstated the law in their lawsuit. But anyway, she's trying to sue us for violations of the Florida's Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. We had a pretrial conference earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday, and the court, she had filed her case in small claims, and that's now been, because we filed our foreclosure in circuit court, that small claims action has now been consolidated with our circuit court action, and we'll be addressing it there. But I don't think anything's going to come of it, quite honestly.
It got me when I saw the mental anguish.
Yeah.
I thought that was cute.
I did too.
Good morning, Supervisors. The Recreation Parks and Advisory Committee has awarded up to $94,706 for new shuffleboard courts to be installed within the Racket Club. The final approval is needed from the Board of County Commissioners, so I should have an update from the RPAC Committee Administrative Assistant on when that will be in front of the Board of County Commissioners. I've also received some communications from Advent Health, and they are very interested in presenting their new wellness center to you all. They've committed to the August 23rd board meeting, and their CEO, along with some other staff, would like to be here to present what they have in place for the new wellness center. So that's very exciting news. We're gearing up for hurricane season, so with maintenance and testing, we're wrapping up for our 13 generators. We're making sure that those we have to keep those maintained on a regular basis to make sure that they can stay up and running as they did for Irma. I believe the longest time that we had a generator running was for the Island View Restaurant, which was the last facility to be up on electricity, and that was almost 8 to 9 days. Is that right, Mike? Is Mike here? Oh, he's gone. I'm sorry. He's gone. So we want to make sure those generators are up and maintained. Deer Run is scheduled. Deer Run is shut down as of yesterday. It will reopen on June 6th. So right now, the Mondragon Company is out working on the irrigation. So if you can see, they're going to go hole by hole right now. I know they're using a ground penetrating radar to mark where the pipes are flowing into the greens, and so by June 6th, they're scheduled to be finished. Construction for the kitchen is set for June 4th. I've sent the board an update from Cliff. Temporary kitchen should be open during that same week, so we should have everything finished by then. Wednesday, May 29th is the last day for full menu dining. So after May 29th, there's going to go to, I guess, some cold menu options for a little while. So if you have any specific questions about the restaurant, when it'll be closed, open, what we're serving, I know Cliff can take care of that. I know our first storage trailer is moving into the parking lot this morning or today, and that storage trailer will be holding our kitchen equipment that we are going to be reinstalling back into the kitchen. So as it's removed, it's going to be cleaned, it's going to be stored, and then the contractor will have it moved back in. So we're going to have up to 2 units out on the parking lot. It'll be as close as we can get to the back entrance, so it will take up a little space, but that's certainly needed for the construction time. So last thing I have, I've received a final quote I've received 2 quotes for the traffic study. The one company that is recommended by our Poston Engineering is Traffic Planning and Design. The final quote I received is $7,750, And that includes, let me just read you their proposal real quick. We have a kickoff meeting with them to review the mapping and the streets that we're looking at. They're going to review the existing site conditions and evaluate the existing traffic control devices, which is our stop signs. We don't have lights here, obviously. They're going to conduct a field survey to observe the traffic flow and speeds. They're going to conduct speed and volume measurements along the roads that I had given them in the map. I had sent that to the board, I believe, last week. They're going to review speed and volume measurements and recommend alternative traffic calming measures. And they're going to discuss that with us, and then, of course, they would have a presentation for the Board of Supervisors on their findings. And then after their findings, they'll issue a report. So
when would the board expect to see
I
this?
haven't signed the agreement yet. I'm waiting to hear a timing on this project. I've asked them, the proposal is fine, but when can I expect our first meetings? When we complete? Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? So I'm waiting on a final information from the owner on that. So.
Is it your intention to go ahead?
Yes.
I mean, we're not going to wait till the end of June.
No,
to
we are
approve
not.
this.
This is within my purchasing authority, but I want to let the
Right.
board know I have not finalized it. I should have all the information today on the timing. I hope this will be, very soon that we
Okay.
can start.
I mean, I just didn't
yes.
I didn't want to wait till the end of
No,
June.
absolutely not.
Did we add Cantoria to the list? We
I
talked
did-
about that.
Yeah, we talked about that. I'm thinking of adding Cantoria and removing one of the other streets, which was Frontage Road. Frontage Road, it does receive a lot of commercial traffic, but I don't know that that's necessarily what we're interested in. So that was my plan, to let them know I'd like to switch that. Yes, sir. And with Cantoria, we have a stop sign, right there on Orduno, which people are very inclined to make the right, at the stop sign to cut through. So that is another issue that I'd like for them to look at. But.
Well, don't take anything out necessarily. I'd rather spend another $1,000 and get it right so we can get a clear view of what we need to do.
These are just suggestions anyway, right? When they report to us, these aren't things we have to change.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I don't know that we have an issue on Frontage Road, do we?
Initially, I was looking at Frontage Road from a speeding standpoint, but I believe with the stop sign placements and what we have, it is what it is. I don't know that would be the best use of time or funds.
Yeah, I think we're more concerned
Initially,
with residential area.
Yeah, that's what, initially that was my thought process, and then I revisited that. So I'd like to remove Frontage Road and add in Cantoria, yes. That's all?
How'd the pictures come out that they took? The aerials of the golf course and everything?
It's only been a week, so I'm hoping
We haven't
by
seen
another
them yet.
week. Haven't seen them yet. Very excited to see those. Yeah. Video as well. Video too.
Good.
Drone video. He did drone.
Yes, there are aerial photos, and then they're also doing, it's called a club movie, so it's a 3 to 5 minute long marketing basically film. So they went through all the amenities and did action shots. We had some folks who were willing to go play pickleball, and it was a really active day on the golf course, so there was lots happening, and they were able to go capture some of that footage so that we can package it into a marketing video.
Any unfinished business?
None.
New business?
None.
Committee reports?
None.
Public comment?
I feel guilty coming to talk to you, but I'm excited to see what you all do. Really excited. I have an addiction, and it's the TV and Wi-Fi and computers. I live in Magnolia Place, and where I live, we get, forgive me what the term means, MPS. It's how fast your stuff is to use. And I want to know if anybody's complained, has anything been done? Because when I talk to Century Lake or Comcast, which are monopolies. When they come into an area, they do what they want. Has anybody talked about putting some pressure on as a group or developing our own systems to get higher speeds? Because right now I really go down to 3 or 4 if you know anything about computers, and I know very little. Is there anything being done in our area to speed up what we get? And I know some communities have put their own systems in and gotten away from these monopolies that really dictate how much speed we have.
I know of nothing.
Has anybody else complained about this, or is it just me?
Are you
never heard it discussed,
CenturyLink
it's
or
just me.
Comcast?
What?
Are you CenturyLink or Comcast?
I'm CenturyLink, and
I find Comcast's high-speed internet. I moved here working in California, so speed was essential. And Comcast has been really good on speed.
and that's
CenturyLink
very
is
true.
really
I'm one
slow.
street away from Comcast.
You can't get Comcast where you are?
No, like I said, it's a monopoly. They divide up where they go and they do what they want to do. So I can't get, television, the different systems where you can get those kind of things. And it's never going to happen unless something's done.
I don't blame you. I changed from CenturyLink to...
Oh, yeah.
I also have Comcast, but I haven't received a first complaint from anyone in the community. Comcast does have the speeds higher than CenturyLink. And unfortunately, that's our only 2 options. And that's what we use for the district office as well. So it's worked very well for us over the last, I think we're going on 4 years now. We had to make that change because CenturyLink could not provide us the speeds that we needed for our daily functions.
Just for your information, they can go up to 15. And that's not satisfactory.
CenturyLink says 20 now.
CenturyLink?
Says 20, yeah. But
Not
that's
where I
nothing
live.
compared to the 100 or 150 you can get from Comcast.
You know, I'm a prisoner to them. I can't find cheaper services to get on, to record movies and things like that because it won't back up.
Yeah.
And it's talking to a wall.
Yeah, CenturyLink is not going to be much help. Has Comcast said why they aren't in Magnolia? Because you would think that they could.
It's money. And the monopoly
Okay, any discussion to and from the board? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting and start the budget workshop. Take a couple-minute break.
You guys ready? Try and get through this, see if we can get to lunch. So I've prepared just a brief presentation to go through the budget book, try and keep us on somewhat of a track, try and get through this thing. So we'll start off on page 12, which kind of just shows the budget summary as a whole for all funds for this first proposal. Total revenues, total expenditures balance come out to $11,458,100. That's the overall budget this year. Does include $750,000 being transferred out from the general fund into the golf fund, and then does include a $334,000 transfer from utility into the general fund. Page 13, we used this spreadsheet last year just to show kind of how each fund is performing operationally and how we get to those numbers as far as the transfers in, transfers out. So the first column is that fiscal year 18-19, which is this year's estimated actuals. We see that our reserve balance started at the $8.4 million. We are projecting a deficit of about $1.3 million, give or take, which brings our reserves down to about $7 million. This year's 2019-2020 budget, we'll start with the general fund, which is showing operational revenues at $3.7 million. Operational expenditures at 3.3, which provides an excess for capital of $336,000. And then capital items being requested this year, $365,000, which brings that fund itself almost completely balanced to a deficit of $29,000. The utility fund has $2.4 million of operating revenues estimated this year in this budget, operating expenditures of $1.6 million, which gives an excess for capital of $809,000, and then the utility fund's requesting $475,000 in capital projects, which gives it an excess over expenditures of $334,000. And then the golf fund, we see the $3.7 million in operating revenues for their first draft. Operating expenditures coming out to $4 million, just slightly over $4 million. So the subsidy figure of $305,000, and then $445,000 being requested in capital, which brings that deficit to $750,000. So overall, giving all the funds into account, there's a deficit, total deficit of $445,000 that we are pulling from reserves to balance this budget this year. So based on that estimation, our estimated reserves are going to be the $7 million minus the $445,000, gets us to a net ending position of $6,726,964. Any questions on that, on all the transfers in, deficits? Okay. So page 16, we've used this slide a couple of times when we were going through the kitchen projection and some of our 5-year capital discussions. So what we've done, we've taken some key assumptions into account. So typically on average, based on budgets in the past, operationally we usually have about $1.5 million after operating revenues and expenses left for capital. So we've taken all the capital based on the 5-year capital plan and kind of just shown where we stand as a whole. So this year you're seeing that negative $335 transfer. And then next year we only see an $18,000 deficit, which is pretty balanced. And then the year after that, only $148 in the positive. So from a capital standpoint and operationally in reserves, for the next 3 years, we look in pretty good shape as far as balancing the budget. We're pretty close on all ends for the next 3 years. 22-23, we start seeing a little bit more of a deficit of $745, and then you see a large deficit in 23-24 of 1.4. Those include what I call major capital anomalies. So in 2022-23, we included a $500,000 renovation to Town Hall, and then 23-24, they're still included in there is a $1.5 million pool renovation. So that's something we can discuss is, do we want to push that out farther and take it off this 5-year projection? Just kind of what the plan is for those major capital projects. Because I think once you take those out, we'll be pretty balanced across the board for the next 5 years. Give or take slight variances. Any questions on that?
Yeah, minor point. I don't know if it matters or not, but your $915,000?
Yeah.
That includes roads and drainage, but if
Correct.
you go to page 37, roads and drainage is listed there as well.
Correct. So on the 5-year capital plan, every 5-year discussion, we've been including that 5-year drainage plan. So it's probably something that we need to take out from the 5-year capital just so all of our documents match. So I would agree that this year that number should be the 365 that I just mentioned on the previous page.
Right.
So we'll make that adjustment going forward. So the allowance before of $1.5 million, we did include drainage and road paving. So if we did include that in there, then our allowance would probably be only $1 million, give or take, once you take out roads and drainage.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, your numbers are still the same.
Yeah, we'll make that adjustment so all the spreadsheets match.
Okay.
So I think that's
Are you still working towards a 10-year capital plan at some?
correct.
Okay.
So we'll jump into the general fund. Start off on page 28, which is just an overall summary. What we've done on this one, we've kept the percentages on this one spreadsheet from budget to budget just to show operational changes. We wanted to highlight there's not very much operational changes as far as departments. So administration, 1% increase, which is really only $3,500. Community services went up 14%. Recreation, a negative 1% decrease, finance a 1% decrease, code enforcement 2%. So overall, just shows that our overall operating expenditures are staying relatively constant. The only things that are changing are capital requests and then reserve funding based on those capital requests. That general fund summary on page 28 still shows the transfer out to the golf operating of 305, total capital outlay of 810, and then a balanced budget needed by the transfer in from the utility fund of 334, and then the reserve funding of the $445,000 deficit that we talked about. All that's included on that page 28. Pages 9 through 11, we've provided you an organizational chart. We've made no changes from last year. We've kept the same positions. Currently, the district has 30 full-time employees, 11 part-timers, and then the 5 board of supervisors are included in this diagram and on the page 10. So we do have a vacant project manager position that we're still continuing to look for. Other than that, operations have stayed pretty steady. Page 11, we did want to show for informational purposes, based on our policy manual, the boards should review the pay grade scale annually. We are recommending no changes at this point. Our lowest pay grade, which are notated on that organizational chart, is a pay grade 10, which starts at $12.04, which is significantly higher than the minimum wage. So at this point, we're not recommending any changes to that pay grade scale.
Can we go back to the project manager?
Yeah.
I mean, in your write-up, it says it's a new position.
Correct. So it was budgeted last year. We still have not filled that position. We retweaked the estimated salary range. I think last year we put it in at $60,000. This year we bumped it up to $65,000, just based off, limited quantity of qualified candidates and what they're requesting when they come in for interviews. So we did make a slight adjustment. So it's not a new position based on budget, but it's a new position operationally.
And this job is going to do what? What do they do? The project manager's responsibility is going to be what? So
they're going to encompass some different aspects. They're going to help monitor project management, RFPs, some of the purchasing, contract documents. So basically anything involved with major capital project tracking, purchasing from an outside, from a field standpoint. Yeah. So, construction permits.
This position takes whose responsibility, or is it everybody's responsibility?
Who's doing the work now?
Who's doing the work now?
Right now, it's being delegated across. So each department head is taking on their own purchasing responsibilities and requirements. Construction permits have fallen under me in finance. RFPs have fallen under me in finance. So all of it's kind of just been delegated out at this point right now.
Chrissy and I are taking over contracts.
What's been the difficulty in filling the position?
For contracts and...
No, finding a project manager.
Finding a project manager. What's so hard? I mean, what's
I just
the problem?
re-advertised for that position in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So
I think the difficulty's been finding someone in that niche. So we're almost looking for someone who's experienced in contracts, experienced in purchasing, has some civil engineering background or contractor background. So we're looking for someone who's almost specialized, and then we're requesting them to be inside of Highlands County. So I think those two components have been the most difficult part, is getting someone to attract them from Tampa, Orlando, to bring them to Sebring has been a little difficult in our search. We haven't got a lot of candidates that are local that have all of that experience and capabilities that have applied for those positions.
Okay. It's 70,000, right? 72,000 is what you're kind of allocating.
That's what we put in the budget, yeah.
Not include salary and benefits, or just salary?
No. Correct.
Salary and benefits.
That's just salary for the 72,
salary.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
So pages 20 through 22, I think we'll talk about some assessment rates. I know that's a key revenue source for the general fund as a whole. Page 20 shows our current rates. Last year, we did implement the new assessment methodology change where we reduced the vacant, unimproved, and improved lots. And then we did a 3.8% increase across the board after the reallocation. So right now, the single-family dwellings sit at $700. This year, in our estimated actuals, I've budgeted an estimated revenue collection of $3.2 million. Our budgeted revenues was 3.3, so we're about $100,000 less than what we estimated. A lot of that's coming from foreclosure collections. Our actual collections this year are a little bit lower than we projected. So on average, the last 3 years, we've collected about $3.4 million. And we expected about a $150,000 decrease once we implemented the assessment methodology change. So we're right back to where we believe we are. We're still trying to collect on some major commercial retirement homes that still haven't paid this year. So there's some things that haven't taken place yet, but we're hoping we get them settled before the end of this fiscal year to get to that $3.3 million budget number.
I wasn't on the board, but I was in the audience at that meeting where it was discussed reducing the rates. Did it have the desired impact? Did we get a better percentage of payment by lowering the rates, or did we just lose money?
Right. So page 21, I think, answers your question. Our main objective was to try and decrease the unimproved and improved to get a better collection ratio. You're seeing in that first graph, the collection ratio for unimproved is at 11.2%, and improved is at 36.62 as of April 30th. That's right about where we were last year. So it did not have the effect initially that we were expecting. Now that's still taken into consideration. We're still dealing with some of the bond issuance issues. We're still dealing with some of the county lots coming back into fruition. So I think it's going to take a couple of years for people. I noticed that we are getting a lot more phone calls on, hey, it went down. What can I do to keep my lot? Can I get a payment arrangement? So we are getting more responses back from these owners who are delinquent and are noticing the change. But they're still in a position where the outstanding balance is still greater than some of the values on the property, so we're still overcoming that hurdle. So it may take a couple of years before we cross that bridge, and then we get them back on track. But yes, to your point, it didn't have the effect that we.
You're estimating that we're going to lose $150,000, right? About.
That's what we estimated last year when we implemented this. Yes.
That's what it looks like you're going to lose, right?
Correct. So last year we typically always collected 3.4. So if you see those actuals for the last 3 years, that's what we collected before we did the change. We knew that making this change would cost us about 150, which is right where we are.
Right.
So we're expecting to try and make that go up to 3.3 in this upcoming budget. So we got new land sales being developed. We have more properties being sold by the county. We have a large developer who still hasn't closed on a substantial amount of properties that hasn't gone through, but we're hopeful it does. So based off those projections, we are expecting an extra $100,000 in increased revenues next year.
As we spoke yesterday, the assessments are going to be around $308,000 or $3 million.
$3.1 million, yeah.
3.1, and you're saying that previous year collections, blah blah blah, is going to be about 287. That's too high. You're 100,000 too high here.
Right. So in 2016, we collected 300,000 in prior year collections. So that's not this. The graph in front of you only shows collections for 2018 assessments. It does not include 2017 or any delinquent assessments. They're not included in these projections. This is only for the current year. So I'm taking the 3.1 projection plus all the collections from foreclosures and delinquent notices that people are calling in and saying, hey, I want to come back and I want to pay a payment arrangement, or I want to pay my account, or commercial units who haven't paid on time. That's how I get from the 3.1 to the $3.3 million.
As I said, that's 275,000. You really think you're going to get that much?
It's been that consistent the last 2 years. It's been about 300, and this year we're at 156,000 this year to date in prior year, and it's been on average about 200, 250,000.
Well, you need 280.
I know, so I might be a little short, but I'll push myself a little harder.
I think you got to relook at the number. I don't think you got the right number. I think you're too high.
We'll look at it. So once again, give or take 50 grand, hopefully more construction, new development, more land sales with the county. Hopefully that makes up my difference. So hopefully maybe I'm being a little bit optimistic, but you can quote me next year if I don't hit that number.
It's a swag anyway.
Any questions on assessments? Do we want to talk about, we mentioned that the general fund or the fund as a whole, we're in a deficit of $445,000 right now to balance this budget. The question is, are we okay with that number? Do we want to look at revenue sources?
What I'd like to recommend to the board is that we go through all of the funds, see where we are, and then have a conversation on what, if any, increases that we want to take, be it via assessments or via water or whatever.
I think that's why.
But I think we ought to do that at the end as opposed to.
Well, that's why I wanted you to look at page 13, because until you can see how each fund is performing, then now you can dictate and have these conversations. So you can see how each fund per budget is on page 13. That's why we have this first. So you see how good the general fund is doing, almost balancing itself. Utility fund is obviously making money and subsidizing some of the deficit, and then you see the golf fund. So if you want to talk about assessments, this is why we would talk about it now. That's why I wanted to show this graph before we went into it.
So you don't agree with what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's important for you to know if there's an issue, whether we need revenues before you get into talking about assessments. So the question is, are we okay with a $445,000 deficit, or do we need to start looking at revenue sources, and which ones do we want to look at? Is it assessments where the general fund's performing fairly break even? Do we want to continue to push the utility fund, or do we want to address golf?
If we're concerned about revenue, clearly we need to address golf, and golf is an issue that we have had a need to subsidize. So I would be really reluctant to look at that board and say, okay, well, golf is where the deficit is, so let's increase the assessment. But we need to look at golf if we're worried about the revenue. But I think at this point we're saying let's continue to subsidize the golf and look for ways to increase golf revenue through new memberships by getting new people moving in and getting more residents. That's what the whole marketing plan is about. So.
Well, I think it's important too to look at it and say, it's not just golf, it's really the restaurant, and that's basically what we're addressing with the kitchen and the lanai. Yeah, I mean, it's always golf, but it's not really golf. It's the restaurant.
Right.
That's the issue. And I don't, you're putting another 100 seats. You're putting another. You're going to be a real restaurant instead of a whatever you want to call it. What does that do? I don't know.
Right.
And I think it's all a guess at this point in time.
Yeah, I think the hope is the improvements we're making are going to increase the revenue.
And if it doesn't, then we got an issue. I personally am not that concerned with a 445, given the fact that we're doing what we're doing. If we weren't doing what we're doing, then yeah, I'd be real concerned with it. But
445 has nothing to do with the restaurant. That's in this year's budget, right?
Yeah, but you don't know what the sales are going to be in the restaurant because that's what we're dealing with now. The number that Cliff came up with, that's we haven't changed any of that.
Right, so that's going to be adjusted. Correct.
So if he goes up 200 grand on sales, that's probably 100 to the bottom line.
Right.
All right, so that knocked that down to 335. He also agreed to increase the number of memberships.
Right.
So, I mean, I can see another 150 maybe knocking off that 445.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, this is just based off the golf fund's first draft.
Exactly.
So once he comes back within the draft, that deficit of 305, maybe only 225, 250. This is just per the first draft. So
yeah.
Well, I think it's too early to be talking about revenue increases.
Yeah.
Until we know where the hell we are. We don't know.
Right.
So I think we're going to have to actually go through the next meeting where we had the second go-through on each of these funds. And then, at the end of that, we should have a pretty good number, and then we can have a better conversation on what, if anything, we need to do. Do you guys agree with that?
I agree.
I agree.
Good. So, I guess we'll go into pages 23 to 27. We're recommending some changes in the recreation department. So I'll pass it on to Ariel.
Hello. So I guess then we'll just start on page 23. As you can see, one of the things that we're recommending is that we adjust the rates in which we are renting out the community center. Currently, the way that the rates are structured is it is based on obviously resident versus non-resident, and then it's also broken out between estimated guest attendance. So if you think that you're going to have 0 to 100 people, it's this price. If you're going to have the 101 to 200, it's this price. I don't necessarily think, what you can see here is that we are proposing that we switch that from having the two separate rates based on attendance to one flat rate that is resident versus non-resident. In my opinion, we don't have any real means of controlling if you paid for 100 and you had 120. We really don't have a way of knowing that. So that's kind of the reason that we did that. The next piece of that is...
Before you go any further, I have
Yes.
a philosophical question. Is why the heck would we rent this facility to somebody who wasn't a resident?
Well, that's a good question. And the couple pages later, you can see where the breakdown is as far as what was rented.
What page would that be?
What we are...
Oh, I see, 27?
On 27?
Is that it?
Yes. So on page 27, you can see non-resident community center rentals. In fiscal year 2018, we had 1. And year to date for 19, we have had 2. So...
Can you give us an example of what they were?
I'm sorry?
What were they, the 2?
I'm going to presume a wedding. Yeah.
In here?
Yeah, wedding reception. Let me clarify. Yes, maybe not the ceremony, but yeah, the receptions. And there can be a couple of reasons that it's too low, and it could be that our price was too high, or it could be that they had friends in Sun and Lake who maybe could help them get the better rate if their friend booked it. There's not a real. I don't have a reason that that's so low. I don't have an explanation for the reason that that's so low, but obviously it is. So that's a great question.
Ariel, I'd put a big question mark over this on the bottom there because
Okay.
I live right over there. And,
Okay.
I can't believe it's only rented 124 times. I mean, this place is rented all the time. I don't know if it's rented. Somebody's
Right.
here. Do we have a free thing, or do we? I mean, it's.
So yes, so these rentals, these are actual like events. So we're going to say like a wedding reception. We'll use a wedding reception as kind of the go-to for that. So now you think, okay, we've got walking class, we've got all of these activities that happen during the day, and those are not rentals. That is part of being a community center.
Like,
So
I don't mean that during the day.
Okay.
At night, there is a tremendous lot of business here.
And yeah, a lot of that are like card groups. So it's very similar. So during the week, there are different card groups that play into the night.
Okay. Because there's cars. I mean, my God.
There's a lot of card people.
And the other day, I heard a band playing. So I know that was
they've got
a wedding or something going on.
They've got lots going on sometimes with cards.
But this place is really used.
It absolutely is.
So
There are a lot of
I
miles
would
on this.
recommend. You talk about we talk about the food. We talk about the golf. This is a place where we maybe could make some money, a little more than what we're doing. I mean, we don't look at this stuff. It's very popular. So
It is used a lot. It is used a lot.
and I can say that because I live right here, and it's no big deal, but it's used.
Right. So one of the other proposed changes we have currently, there are 2 separate deposits that are being required. One is a $250 damage deposit. The other is a $250 deposit for alcohol, which the alcohol has to go through the Island View Restaurant anyways. So one of the things that we are proposing is that we make it a $300 deposit, and that's going to cover our damages. I don't necessarily know that there's a great reason to be collecting a deposit for the alcohol when they have to take that up with someone else. They can't go through us for that. So what we're proposing is that we just make that a $300 flat deposit. We have a checklist within the department that our contracted staff member that we have that does like the janitorial services for us right now, when she comes in to clean this building, there's a checklist of this was done, this was done, this was done, this was done, and that's what we base the return for the deposit on. So as long as there's no issues there, then they get their full deposit back.
I don't mean to make light of this, but this is peanuts in
Yes.
relation to the full budget. So
Yes.
as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't rent it to non-residents. I'll just put it that way. And
Okay.
whatever however you want to do it. I'm a believer in KISS principle. Just keep it simple. So whatever
Yes.
makes sense to me.
Perfect.
I would argue that there are some circumstances where it makes sense to rent to outside groups because there aren't that many facilities like this. But where I have the problem is that we're increasing the resident rate significantly and actually decreasing for larger outside groups. I would raise the outside rate so that if they really want it, they pay for it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that I would increase the resident rate quite so much.
Okay.
What is a resident pavilion?
The resident pavilion is back behind like the playgrounds, that covered space that's back. It's right behind us. So sometimes they do. Yeah, we rent that, and that's actually rented quite a bit as well.
Yeah, 45 times.
Yeah, they do smaller events, like maybe a birthday party, things like that.
And we charge them $225 for that? Surely we don't charge them for that. What do we charge them for that?
$35 plus tax for a resident,
Oh, $35?
and then $200 for non-resident for the pavilion. Page 25.
Right there, and there are deposits associated with both of those as well.
Oh, I see, okay.
Up at the very top.
Well, I'll go with Dan. I think the non-resident thing, I think residents of $400 is too much. I don't know why we're raising them.
One of the biggest expenses we have for this building in renting it out is the cleaning. So last year, it kind of bounced around a little bit everywhere. When I started, there was an employee who was here who took care of that. When we did away with that position, we had a third party come in to clean the building. And the cost of having the building set up and cleaned before and after most events was substantial. So what we were looking to do with that small raise is we have an employee who we are contracting currently through Sunshine Staffing, and she takes care of all of the recreation amenities. And what that does is it covers our cleaning cost, the cost that we are going to have to pay her to come in and clean this building, because I want to say that covers two, because typically you have to have it cleaned. Again, we'll say a wedding, you're having it cleaned before, and you're having it cleaned after.
It's $175 if you got 1 to 100 people.
Well, what we're proposing is that we do away, so it would be a $400 rate, which is basically $325 plus the $75. Cost us about $75-$80 to have it cleaned twice with her hourly rate. So that's where that cost difference is.
Do you have the breakdown of how many events were in the 1 to 100 or 100 to 200? Is that here somewhere?
I don't think there is a cost breakdown of that in here.
No, how many different events? How many fall in the hundreds? How many fail?
Yeah, we don't have the breakout between like what falls within 100 or 0 to 100 and 101 to 200. We don't have that on here.
Do you have a rough concept?
Yes. I mean, the idea is not to lose business. And to Dan's point, it's not a big number, but I don't want to lose anything.
Well, I think operationally, we've talked about this a couple times, and our biggest, for the 225, 0 to 100, the cleaning fee that we were being charged was $125 per cleaning and setup. So coming in and coming out, that was $250. You were breaking even on those small events. And then on the larger ones, we were making a little bit, but it was just operationally. So, through discussions internally, we've talked about we're building a new kitchen. We want them to grow more revenue. Do we really need to be renting this place, or do we just keep it as a public community center at all? I think that's something we need to discuss too, because basically this thing's breaking even. And we're going through the hassle of cleaning it, renting it out, not generating any revenue from food and alcohol as much as we could be if we directed them across the street where they have a resident rate and a non-resident rate. So we really
is you have to set it up for the card groups. You have to take it down it's
which we'll do that operationally, but we're having extra expenses on the weekend to turn this thing over on a Saturday and a Sunday, and it's just from our standpoint with everything that we have going on now, it may be beneficial to relook at this and maybe go in another direction that we haven't gone in the past, but may make more sense for the district as a whole.
So essentially, you're saying we've been losing money renting this out.
Right. It's been breaking it, yeah. Once again, if we're going to make $200 on every rental for 52 weeks out of the year, it's a kick in the bucket, and we could probably generate 3 times as much across the street. So we've really been on the fence of almost just doing away with rentals and just keeping this as a community center. Keep it public, and then if someone wants to come rent the pavilion, that's fine. It's outside. We really don't have to do cleanup. They're responsible for the cleanup and the deposit on that. So that's something else to consider, because it's really going to be a wash in the budget. We'll lose the revenue, but we'll also lose all the expenses that go along with it. So, and then that alleviates the whole non-resident issue as well, because it's for the community. It's a public place for them to come play cards and do yoga and do our community socials. So.
But you're talking $500 if you go across the street to charge them.
Right, and we're proposing $400. So why would you not take the nicer facility with food and alcohol already there, and they have all the cleaning, they maintain everything themselves at that place, versus we're having to contract a third-party person to come clean it and do that work on the weekends. And we're not monitoring. We don't monitor alcohol. It's just operationally, I don't know that it makes sense anymore for us for the amount of money. Last year we collected on page 26, total community center fees were $13,000.
It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and our cleaning expenditure was $10,000.
So you made 3?
Maybe, because we had supplies. We still have floor cleaner. We have dents in the wall, painting. Yeah,
Why don't we just not?
Thank you.
Well, I think you have to keep it open till October.
Well,
because the kitchen's going to be
that's just something for us to talk about through this budget process.
yes, but 76 rentals in the last year and a half. Can the restaurant handle another 76?
Well, that 76 is 2 years. That's fiscal year 18 and 19.
Well, I said a year and a half, so 2 years. Another 76 rentals on top of what they already have. What I'm saying is that we've talked about this internally. I don't know if just cutting the cord right now for this community center is going to be the best thing right now. We might need another year or so before we do that, but
I think given what we're hearing, raising the rate makes sense, and if that discourages rentals, that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
So your recommendation is to go to $400 across the board? Is that correct?
For resident.
What do you want to do about non-residents? You want to do that or not do that?
We'll just keep it at I think we just keep it at $950. It hasn't been anything that they've been taking advantage of. They've been 3 in the last year and a half, so it's not anything that's affecting us.
But you have no control. What are you doing, handing them a key?
Right. That's another issue too. That's why we think that number is so low. Is if I know someone that lives on Sunrise and I use their name, they're always getting the resident rate.
I was asked to use my residency to rent this place for a wedding several years ago.
Right.
And I'm going, I don't think so, because that means I got to be a policeman because nobody else is going to control it. And if anything goes wrong and you tear up something, then it's mine.
Right.
So I said,
And I'm also confused. I'm hearing two different things on alcohol. One is that we don't control it, and one is they have to get it from us.
They get the island view.
They get it from the island view, but then there's nobody here to control it?
Well, Island View has staff, but what we're finding out is, let's say you have an event and you tell us there's no alcohol and you choose to bring it in on your own. That's what I'm saying. We have no one to control. We don't know what you're bringing in a cooler. We're not coming in here and tasting your. So we're causing a liability and a conflict for something that we can't control. We have it in rules, but there's no one here enforcing that. Now we're promoting you to go to Island View. Hopefully you do what you.
probably also are putting your liquor license in jeopardy.
You're required to only use Island View or BCG staff, but what he's saying is that
I
all those
follow
events
that
that don't,
they bring it in.
they bring it in, and there's no control over that. That's correct.
I can guarantee you if somebody gets run over by a drunk going home, who's going to get sued? Son of Lake.
Dan,
Bet on it.
right now, we cannot control what they're bringing out of here.
I know. That's
Okay?
what I'm saying.
And we've been fighting this for 8 years. All right? Just so you all know, you want to make this decision. We've been fighting this for 8 years that we have no control of what they bring in here. We have actually come over here and told them to stop drinking. All right? Well, I mean, and you're right. Something's going to happen. They're going to run someone over. Right?
We don't
I mean,
understand the
we
risk.
go over this all the time, and there should be a decision made on this. Is do we rent it to outsiders or not? Right.
So it sounds to me like we should let the restaurant take this over. Is that what we're saying? Huh? Well, they should be able to handle it. No?
I don't know what they can handle until they have a year of operation. I would say, my personal opinion, I guess no surprise to anybody, we shouldn't be renting this to outside people because we don't have any control, and you don't know what they're bringing in. Now, you don't know about residents either, but at least they live here.
Right.
And a $250 deposit is not going to get anybody's attention. I can guarantee you that. So I would say we shouldn't rent it to outside people.
And I think leaving it, I agree, but leaving it at the $950, they're never going to pick this place if they can go somewhere for $500.
City of Sebring rents their civic center downtown. I think it's the Jack Stroop Civic Center, which they do allow alcohol there. It's $500 to a city resident, $600 to a non-resident, and that's for weekend rentals. Okay, during the week for other organizations, it's cheaper. I don't have the rates in front of me. So we did inquire about that, and you are allowed to bring in your own alcohol or bartender or whatever.
I know, we've been there to things, and it's no nicer than this.
No.
But, I mean, the city of Sebring is one thing, Sun Lake's another. I don't think we need to take the risk. That's my personal opinion.
My thought would be, how about if we set it up so that any non-resident rental would have to be catered by the restaurant. So the restaurant could cater an outside group here as opposed to in the restaurant to keep the restaurant open for the public. But it would have to be fully controlled through that way, so that they can't just rent the building, they have to cater an event.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't know they have the capacity to do it.
I know the restaurant has done some stuff over here, and it's really tough for them to get stuff back because the kitchen is not set up for that. That's a great idea, actually, right? But I don't think this kitchen is set up to do 150 people. That's the only problem there. So you're not going to get, because I've seen it, our kitchen do some stuff here, and it's pickup trucks, they bring their stuff in and all that stuff. That's one, so.
Food for thought for for the remaining.
Forget what we thought, we gotta make a decision.
We don't have to make a decision today. Once again, we're still looking at, that's just something we've been talking about, but it's a budget discussion, right? So we're talking about, there's different alternatives. We can increase revenues, we can keep it the same, we can change operations. We're giving you our opinion, and if you guys want to make a decision on it, that's great, that's fine too, but you don't have to do anything.
Well, I think even if we said that it would have to be an event catered by Island View, and if Island View says we can't cater it, they can't have it.
I don't think at this point in time we know what the Island View can and can't do.
Right.
Until we get the new kitchen, until we get, I don't know what the new seats are going to do for us. Maybe 100 people, which is, I'm guessing what most of these would be, could be handled over there in addition to the normal.
Right.
I just, it doesn't make sense to me. But I'll say this. This is a drop in the ocean. It flat don't make any difference. And we sat here for half an hour talking about something that we made $3,000 off of. Come on, give me a break. I mean, maybe we'll be here for the next 20 years at this rate.
So let's go ahead and jump into the actual budget. So we'll start on page 29. We'll just kind of go department by department, highlight some of the major changes. Page 29 shows all the general fund revenues this year. Slight increase from the $3.6 million number to 3.7. Majority of the changes coming in from interest income. We adjusted that budget. Other than that, everything else stayed relatively constant. Underneath that, you'll see the transfer in of $334 this year, which is new, coming in from the utility fund. And then prior year fund balance did go down from the 2.4 last year, 2.4 million, to the 445 that we referenced a few times. Page 30, administration, budget to budget, really no change. Estimated actual to budget, 28% increase. Budget, really no changes as far as budget's concerned. Once again, the estimated actual didn't include the project manager that we estimated for and budgeted for. I think that's really the biggest highlights in that department.
Okay, just clarify for me. I think I know the answer, but the increase in wages from actual to proposed budget is only 87 to 124.
Correct.
And it doesn't include the project manager.
It does. So the project manager is in there at 50%, which is 36.4.
It just hasn't been filled. That's why it's not in the actual number.
So the actual.
I was concerned that the number wasn't going up enough if we didn't have the position.
So we're splitting that position 50-50 within the general fund and utility fund.
Okay. But it's only going up
40 grand.
37,000, which is okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Community services, biggest highlight in this department was the media buys, which we briefly discussed earlier. Recreation services budget stayed relatively constant, 1% change as far as budget to budget. Finance, once again, 1% decrease, relatively constant, no changes operationally. Code enforcement falls in the same category, the amended budget to budget, minimal change. Security, we do have a major change in security. So this year we did add $19,450, and that's for the enhanced sheriff patrol. So we've included that under contract labor in this department. So that's really the only change.
I'm sorry, go back to community for a minute, community services. Why is the salaries and wages going up so much?
It's going up, what, $2,000?
No, it's going up $12,000.
So you're looking at estimated actual to.
Yeah,
so
call me silly.
Last year you were on Ariel. This Ariel's the only person in this, so she wasn't here the full year. Even though we budgeted for a full employee all year long, we had that transition, so that's why you see the deficit there.
All right, that explains it. Thank you.
So we talked about security, buildings and grounds.
Philosophical question, if we're gonna have a sheriff here so many hours a week or so many hours a day, why would we need that plus security on those particular days? Or do we? I guess is a better question. And secondly, I mean, we're spending $250 grand. Does that really make sense? Should we have somebody here 24/7? I don't know the answer to that, 365, but I mean, that's a question we really ought to ask. This is a big number as opposed to $3,000 for this.
Right.
We agree, and we need to have those discussions internally, because right now we do have 24/7 for security. A majority of our calls are, early morning hours till about, 10 or 11 at night, and then everything past that, there's just not much going on.
I mean, I'll leave that up to you guys. I'm not trying to make a decision here today. I'm just saying that's a question we ought to ask. It's a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
I think we looked at it in the past on what it would cost to have 24/7 sheriff patrol. Do you recall what
that was in a previous management, but it was much cheaper than this budget item of $238,000. Yes. And that was a 24/7, an officer out here full-time.
I don't know if that makes sense. I'm sure they aren't going
I
to
think
pick
I
up.
should say something about
Well,
this.
I'm not sure they're going to pick up all the stray dogs that happen around here like that.
Well, it's not just stray dogs we pick up, Dan, okay? It's homes we check weekly.
I don't mean to kick over this animal.
Well-
I'm just saying it ought to be in Tanya's.
Right, I mean, I'll take any shift you want to go and show you what they do. It's not stray dogs, it's just not, I mean, we get calls for everything, noise, which the sheriff don't come out on, all right? Noise, neighbors having problems with other neighbors, right? Parking. I mean, I've been here 8 years, and I didn't think we needed the security, to be honest with you, but I don't want to live here without it.
I didn't
That's what I'm
say
going
we
to tell
didn't
you.
need it. I said we should talk about it.
I understand
It's
that.
a lot of money.
Well, I'm answering it.
So buildings and grounds, overall, same budget, went down $1,000. Roads and drainage, you see a big decrease there as far as budget to budget. Majority of it allocated to needing less funding for the drainage program. So we've kept the road paving program the same at $350,000. But we've continually, by attacking more of the drainage issues, that number has gone down. So this year included in for drainage is $200,000. So pretty significant decrease there in that department based off the drainage funding needed. And then lastly, equipment and vehicle maintenance, no changes to that department.
Just a general question in
Yeah.
the retirement contributions, is that calculating in the new program?
That is, we did budget it at the 6%, correct. So that's already accounted for in all the departments. So we'll go ahead and jump into the capital items being requested by the general fund. Pages 40 through 45. On page 40, you can see the current year items being requested for a total of $365,000. First two items being in administration, $15,000 for a new server, which is server 5. It's the last server that we have to be replaced on our replacement schedule. We replaced 4 last year, and then this is the last one for the district. And then we've allocated $30,000 for a new assessment system database. Currently we use Access, and I believe it's been in place 20 plus years, and it does the job, but I think we're getting to a point where it's, I think we have one vendor who we solely rely on to make adjustments and make sure that it's importing correctly from the county database. The county just had a major transition last year and did a ton of upgrades to their software. So I'm concerned that in the near future, this access database just won't be able to handle the capabilities. So we do have $30,000 allocated for a new assessment, billing, tracking program. Recreation, we have $15,000 for bleachers for the racquet club, and that includes pouring the pad, the actual bleachers, and a canopy cover for that area. $30,000 for playground canopy shades over the 2 parks right behind the community center. I know we've had a lot of instances where the slides and some of the equipment is just becoming brittle and cracking and causing us to repair and replace just because it's so hot and the heat is abusing it. So we think shades will be a nice addition to those playgrounds and hopefully conserve our equipment a little bit longer. New pool chase lounge chairs for $25,000, and then the pickleball bocce phase 2 for $95,000. Security is requesting a new security truck. I believe their vehicle has 170,000 miles. It's 175,000 miles and needs to be replaced. So we'll be trading that vehicle in and getting a new one. That's $25,000. We're going to be doing some slight renovations to Town Hall in that front entrance, just for safety measures, putting a new counter, providing some more, doorways, and just making some enhancements in that front entrance when you come in to pay your utility bills or come into the district office. So we budgeted that at $35,000, and then equipment for roads and drainage, $95,000, and that includes 4 pieces of equipment, which is shown on page 44.
Oh, it's not
Which
that,
one do you want to address
it's
first?
not that easy. Let's talk about the equipment. Why is it not tied into the golf stuff? Why am I buying equipment that's not related? Is this Toro, or why are we not tying this in with the golf lease that we have on equipment? Why am I buying a lawnmower? Why am I buying a lawnmower? It should be tied in with Toro, shouldn't it? No? Maybe?
Maybe.
We didn't address that during the lease process.
I'm sorry?
The zero-turn mower that we're asking to purchase, the one that we have, is almost beyond repair. We didn't consider any district mowing equipment with the golf equipment.
Right.
As part of the lease.
I think long term, I think we've talked about that internally, is that's probably the goal. We're looking at software now to get a full PM maintenance program, track all of golf and general fund capital equipment, and then hopefully eventually get all our gators on a lease package, get everything combined and use that purchasing power to get better rates. So
what are we doing now?
Long-term goal.
Long-term goal?
Yeah.
Well, the software package that has been presented by Earl, we want to implement that, and we want to get a handle on how old our equipment is, how many hours it is, our mowers and things. The mowers that we use are not the same as what is used on the golf course. So
I understand that, but they must be available from
John Deere.
we didn't consider that as part of the lease.
Aren't they available from Toro?
But I guess the question would be, why wouldn't we go back to them and talk to them about leasing this equipment instead of buying new?
Yeah.
John Deere?
Or John Deere?
I don't know. Yeah, it's John Deere.
Oops.
Yeah, I don't.
Oops.
All right, the equipment that we have lasts a lot longer than the golf courses. Right now, we have gators that are 04, 05 that we still use every day. They're used in-house. Obviously, we have a lot more control over our own equipment because it's long-term employees. They take care of them better. And this is my opinion. I mean, you can shake your head.
I'm shaking my
but
head.
I'm telling you,
this is Sun Lake.
Right, I understand that.
Not the golf and not the district.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sun Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we just buy the equipment from one guy and put it in the lease?
We've never leased anything for Sun and Lake.
For
Sun Lake. I mean, and
we've never
hey,
leased
listen,
any
I'm
golf
not fighting
equipment.
the change, but I'm just telling you, our equipment is different from their equipment. Okay?
I'm telling you, for us to lease golf stuff, lawnmowers, and to buy lawnmowers for the district, to me, makes no sense whatsoever.
I would love to lease every year and get new stuff every 2 or 3 years. Right now, the zero turn that we're using is from 08.
Okay,
Just
all
think
we're
you could have
saying
a
is,
new
That's the only difference. I mean, hey, I mean, if you're gonna get us, new ones every 2-3 years, that's great.
They're not getting new ones every 2 or 3 years either. It's a 5-year
Yeah,
lease.
or 5
And
years.
there's a whole lot
But-
of stuff, there's a whole lot of stuff in there that's on a $1 buyout, so it's not just a lease. It's
Okay.
basically financed. So-
I mean, it's actually a good idea, but I just want to let you know that the reason why we put this on here, because we've always bought, but we keep our equipment a lot longer.
right.
Well,
we're
if you always
suggesting at
do
least
what
look-
you've always done, you always get what you've always got.
Right.
We need to think a little more into the future. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I agree with that.
If John Deere's what we're gonna standardize on, we ought to standardize on it. And
That
in
makes repairs
retrospect, if we
easier,
had
too.
known you guys needed a new mower, we probably would have put it in that same package for another, we would have been able to drive volume. We can't be separate.
All right. So do we lease or we buy?
Well, I think you at least get a bid on the lease and find out.
Well, in essence, it's immaterial. We have plenty of money. The lease was only because we were able to do the maintenance and get it all packaged. I don't care what's leased or purchased. That doesn't matter.
I would see if we could add it on to the program that we got. That's all I'm saying.
So we can get it tomorrow then?
I don't care.
If you can get an agreement, we talk about it. I mean, you using equipment from 2007, you should love this idea.
I do.
Well, the second piece of this,
But I just don't.
I don't know why we would buy an open trailer. If you're gonna, this thing ought to be enclosed.
The picture doesn't depict what we're actually talking about. I apologize for the picture.
That's the most expensive trailer I've ever seen, if that's what it looks like.
Dan, this one, we don't want this one enclosed. It's for under the trees and all that, so.
So we're not going to spend the 31, or we're going to buy something, but it's going to be something else.
12,000.
Huh?
12,000.
I'm
For
sorry.
the
I'm
side
talking about
trailer?
the trailer.
Oh,
right?
no. I'm still on the zero.
Oh, you're still, well, I'll let you guys work that out with the golf people.
I got you. I'm sorry.
Go to the side trailer, that's where he is.
The side trailer is, what we want to do is set up a trailer for all our signs and poles and all that. Right now, we have got them piled all over the place. So when we have to go out and change anything, everything will be in the same trailer. That's why we asked for a trailer. But, no.
I'm sorry, what?
We have road signs and we have poles and
How often do we use this thing? Do we go out and fix things?
when needed.
Huh?
When needed. Well, I mean, we spent 2 months during the storm just putting up signs and all that stuff. So that's why we said, where is everything? There was no organization there. Everything was all over the place. I said, if we get something that we can keep everything in, right, it saves us down the road for losing half the
Where are you going to park this by the?
right over area, down the sewer plant. We have a,
By the sewer plant?
yeah.
So is this gonna be an enclosed trailer or an open trailer? What?
We were hoping to get an enclosed trailer, right?
We were trying to show you
Enclosed, so we can, really what we want to do is try to start organizing things where they're supposed to be. Everything's all over the place, or have been all over the place.
Well,
No.
where is it all over the place? At the shed?
Yeah.
That's a new facility. How can it be all screwed up already, Mike? Jesus.
It's been there a year. How can the bathrooms be so
Well, I would
bad?
think it has to be an enclosed thing. If you're going to store stuff in it, you don't want it to get
It's a
ruined.
lot easier, right, it's a lot easier to go out and work on the job when you have everything right there and send it and have.
I know, but I'm saying, if you're going to buy something, it should be enclosed,
Right,
right?
that's what we said.
Okay.
We wanted to close.
So you're going to get back to us on this one.
Yeah.
So the picture
Okay,
isn't
we're going to
anything
find
like
out
what
exactly what we want.
we're going to buy.
The picture's not right. All right.
Is that a good price, or is that just?
He's got to find
Is
it.
that a good price,
We're
or?
going to come back with that as well.
I mean, $30,000 is a lot of money for a trailer.
Yeah, but they're really talking about more than a trailer.
But we can give
It's
him
a,
rights.
it's a rolling storage room.
I mean, I can get a 19-foot RV for 20. So, and it's got a bathroom in it. So, yeah.
All All right.
Come on, Hurley.
All right. Well, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
You want to talk about in general for a minute?
For 5 years?
No, not 5. Oh, you want to go to 5? Go to 5 years first.
For the general fund? You okay with the,
I'd like to talk one more thing on the general, and it came up earlier, and it's a fair comment. We group golf and the restaurant all the time as golf.
Yeah.
And that's a negative.
Right.
And I think we need to start splitting out golf and the clubhouse as two separate things so people don't think we're subsidizing the golf course with $1 million a year or something.
Okay.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, me too.
We have that in the financial statements that we provide the board on a monthly basis, but for auditing purposes, it's all together. But we do separate it out for you. We can certainly change the budget documents to reflect that.
Yeah, because the public will review these.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I just...
Yeah.
I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot PR-wise by
Still,
doing what we're doing.
the overhead is still an estimate. Remember,
I agree.
we've gone back and forth on that, but we
Yeah.
could put together the numbers in. You want that for the next budget document to see
It all depends on how you count the beans. I get it.
how we count things. Yeah.
And it makes it easier to specifically target the area instead of
Right.
being general. And it's always the golf. What isn't the golf? It's,
I don't know.
you know, just so it helps, it just will help.
Yeah, we'll look into that. Because I know that for us, for our biggest part, I'd be fine creating two funds. The problem is BCG is responsible for our accounting, and they can account for everything in one big software package. So they're sending us, and then we're taking that information and splitting it into two when we don't really control the
I get
information.
it, but we're paying them $120,000.
No, I know. So that's a conversation that
when I paid somebody, I expect them to do what I told them to do, not them tell me.
So that may be a change that we need to address and have them create two different financial statements and split labor, make those splits however we deem fit, but have them do that before they send it to the district. So
That's what I do instead of doing it myself.
I thought we get 2 sets.
Pretty simple. Tell them.
we get one big set.
The district has a separate software than what BCG does.
The monthly report shows the restaurant and it shows the guy.
Yeah, we make that based off the information that they give
BCG
us.
and splitting it out for us.
Right.
We need to tell BCG we need to look at it like this.
Right, exactly. So.
Okay.
They should be too, you would think.
I don't think BCG.
No, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to face that. One of these days we have to discuss that. So.
When the time is right.
So do you want to talk about page 45 on the 5-year?
Yeah.
Go for it.
You want to make any more? I know that Tanya mentioned Florida Hospital. We've got question marks on that line item just for the time being. They're going to make a proposal to us based on their wellness center, and then we can assess how we're going to.
Yeah, let's talk about the pool complex.
There we go.
How many days a year is that thing full, and do we really need a new one, or what do we need, and can we expand the one we got? I mean, I don't really understand. I think I've been in it once in the 20 years I've lived here.
The pool as itself, capacity-wise.
Well, you got the numbers.
Okay. We can pull up the totals online if capacity-wise.
Summertime.
Yeah, summertime, absolutely.
69, I think, is the capacity.
Pardon?
Right.
69 persons
Is the pool capacity.
is the capacity, and that's why we're falling into summertime capacity. To the point where we have had staff turn down members to actually come in, and the pool was just built too small. The reality is that if there were grant funding available for us, we might be able to tap into something of a new complex, or it's an addition to.
Right.
What I'm concerned about is maintenance and what it costs. I mean, the YMCA is a good example. You know, that pool complex was built from donated funds, but I mean, I don't know exactly what their maintenance costs are, but what would it cost us to staff it, to maintain it,
I don't think you could afford to do it unless you were able to use the existing staff. I mean, if
That's right. Existing staff, but, so that's why it's been talked about a long time. What do we do with, we have some charts here. On a monthly basis, we do give the numbers, the capacity, or actually the attendance numbers per day.
The graph.
So here's an example of June, oh, this goes way back, June of 17. Oh. Yeah, so here's a summer month. Not at one time. So what that means is that as people, throughout the day, we have 120 check-ins. Probably Saturdays.
Yeah.
So you can see.
Especially around summer holidays, so Memorial Day, 4th of July, kids are out of school, everybody's at the pool.
I think you had a number on how many memberships are there total.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So the red is members, non-members. What do we got? I can see the non-residents, very few of them, but.
Yeah, those are all. They're all residents. Is that what you said? Yeah, red and green residents, okay.
Blue's non-resident. What's the other two?
There's a red and a green.
Red and green, they're saying in residents, but I don't. Why?
Someone who has a membership versus someone who pays a daily rate.
So that's total membership.
I'm not sure which one's which because I didn't make the actual graph, but I believe that's how it was calculated in 2018.
Yeah, so based on the active paid recreation memberships, as of April 30th, we are looking at 101 family resident members, 322 single resident members, 2 non-resident family members, and 2 single non-resident family members for a total membership of 427 members.
Yeah, but a whole lot of that's golf members.
310.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 310 of them.
840 members. Those were memberships she just quoted, but for the number of people, including the family members, 840 members, and 310 of those are golfers.
So you got 500.
So 530.
530.
530.
For, 69 capacity pool.
Yes.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I mean, you basically have a kids pool out there.
Virtually, yes. Especially when you've got the zero entry piece of
I think you probably could attract more people if you had, I don't know how you build
like
it,
a lap pool or
had something for adults. You know, I know we get a lot of kids coming over there, but there's a lot of adults that would probably come if it wasn't for the kids.
Right.
So the question is, would you need a full new pool facility, or could you either build a kids pool area or make the existing one a kids pool area and add an adult pool?
That's ideal. That would be ideal.
I would think
to me, that's the only way it works.
Right. That's
if it can be done. I don't know.
I don't know.
But then we provide a lifeguard?
No.
I mean, at that point, it may be something we have to consider. Right now, we do not. So members and guests that come in, you're signing a waiver understanding that there's no lifeguard on duty at our pool currently. So, I mean, at that point, if we made it a designated kids pool, that may end up being something we'd have to entertain.
That would be relatively minor expenditure, because you already got. You're staffing it anyway. I mean, that's really the issue. It's cost a lot of money to put somebody in that office, however many hours we're open a day. But I don't see where we're going to find $1.5 million to do that. Now, if we could get county funding for half of it or something, that makes some sense. And I don't know if that's RPAC or what it is, but.
Well, the state of Florida might be the best way to tap into some sort of a grant funding. They have.
We're already.
They have Florida Recreational Development Assistant Programs. They have different grants, but it would have to be something we would look into.
I mean, we're already taking money, so we have to be public.
We have to be public. That's exactly right. We have to be public.
I don't know why we don't look into that and see what's available.
Yes. We don't have to guess.
Plus, now would be a good time. I mean, again, when we talk about it next time, maybe you have to figure out raising assessments or changing utility bills and taking that money and putting it into a fund for future capital needs. I mean, if we're talking 5 years down the road, now would be the time to start saving for it, so that it's not such a big hit when it comes.
Ariel, I have a question. My wife and I go over there, once every couple of weeks. She goes a little more, but are you saying that the people that are over there now are almost all residents?
So based on the numbers that are on here, I mean, yes.
Okay, because I'm just surprised, but because it's been busy when we're over there. But I'm surprised that they're residents. Okay.
Yeah, we pulled those numbers so that we could show the resident versus non-resident in the report, and yes, the majority are residents.
A pool's a lot like a boat. It's a hole in the ground to put your money in. So, I mean, you just have to know that you're never, ever even going to get close to breaking even. So looking at us spending $1.5 million to do that, probably not going to happen.
Right.
So we'll go ahead and move into the utility fund.
No, wait a minute.
What you got?
You know I have some. The general fund, I think we're spending too much money. If I did the numbers right, you want to spend, the revenues are about $3,339,235. Oh, I'm sorry, that is the budget that you guys have put forth. And last year, you're estimating that it came to $3,068,440. That's 270. So the budget this year is 271,000, roughly, more than it was than actual last year. You're going to hate this. So here's how I did it. I took out your project manager.
What page are you looking at? So I can follow.
I'm not looking at a page.
He's got his own.
He's got his own notepad.
Yeah, you gave me the numbers. I had to play.
All right.
Trust me on the numbers. All my numbers match up to yours.
Okay.
Project manager, if you take out the project manager's salary of 36, you take out the advertising excess of 25, and you take out the 25,000 in raises that you put forth in your budget request, you come out to an over expenditure of to this year of $163,870. And I think that's too much.
Well, the project manager, you accounted for 36, and it was actually 72 plus, I guess, benefits aren't included.
No, it's only 30. It's 36
Only
in the general
50%
fund.
is
It's
in the general.
36 in the utility fund.
I don't know.
So you're asking for 164,000 more than you spent this year,
Right.
and I think you have to trim it. To me, that's too high a number. I think you have to go. If it was me, I'd say you got to trim 100,000 off of it. The way you trim it, it would be up to you. But I think you're spending too much money, but you're requesting too much money. Excuse me.
What page are you on? What page?
You won't find.
He has his own numbers.
I just took.
I guess
Give me that page number.
All I did was take your numbers.
This is 13, so I'm just looking at 13, looking at numbers.
I just take.
Does your numbers include the $305,000 in subsidy operating for golf and then the golf capital?
No.
It does not? Okay.
So you're going operating.
My
You're going
numbers-
operating revenues.
My numbers
Operating
don't even
expenses.
include capital.
You're just going operating.
Operating.
And that includes the $305,000 operating subsidy for golf?
No.
It does not? Okay.
Okay.
So I took, like, for example, administration. If you go to that page, what page was that? I can't remember. I could share it with you. I guess I should write it up. I put down the 579,385. That's what you requested. And I put down last year 452,35 up, which is what your numbers are. And I just added them up.
Right.
And you're requesting 270,000 more than last year. And, I don't think prices have gone up that much. I don't know why we would grant 270,000. Now, as I explained to you, I can take away the project manager, the advertising, 20,000 for the police department, that was extra, and the raises, and I still have an over expenditure of $164,000.
Right.
And I think you should trim that by 100. You're still spending more money than last year.
Yeah,
Well,
I would assume so.
But I don't know how you justify it.
Once again, it's hard to follow along with you when you're splitting out all these numbers, and
Well, you
I
look
can
at
see
it.
where your estimated actuals are less than our budget, but I think that's why we budget. You know, we expect our estimated actuals, our actuals to always come in right around budget or a little bit under. You know, that's why we RFP. That's why we get quotes. That's why we do everything we do is to try and come under budget.
Well, I'm
so-
telling you what I did. So
Right.
if you want to look, I think you're 100,000 too heavy. Okay? If you'd like to look at the numbers and come back to me, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to blindside you. I'll give you, look
Yeah.
at them.
That'll work.
I'm telling you what I did, though. I took your totals and then compared them to last year. I mean, that's it. I just compared them.
Okay.
Why don't you share it with them, and
Yeah.
maybe there's justification for it, I don't know. It's difficult to follow, and I've told you this before, it's difficult to follow budget to budget.
And then
When
budget
you're really
actual.
actual to budget is
Right.
a lot better number for comparison.
Right.
Yeah, I did actual to budget.
Right,
That's what I did.
and that's the issue, is the actual is considerably less.
And a lot of times, you're going actual to budget, and that's the kicker too, is if we have employees turnover, we have people who come in half year, you've left budget on the table. That wasn't our fault. That's an operational transition. So you're looking at $100,000 that we're going to spend this year. We didn't spend last year.
I understand.
So that's what I'm saying. That's part of the balancing of budget to actual.
I just took your number.
I understand.
And I added them
I'm just
up.
telling you that we could go all day long saying, why'd you only spend $50,000 last year on repairs and maintenance and this year $75,000?
No, I could go crazy and go through each account line, but
Oh, I know, we've
that's
done that.
That's your
Please.
responsibility. I'm telling you, the
Right.
totals to me are not acceptable.
Okay.
To me, one vote.
Perfect. Great. Anybody else on general fund? I'll get back to Ray later.
I would definitely look at your supplies. I mean, your operating supplies are ridiculous in every page. That's one, but they're little numbers.
Yeah.
That's all. I would appreciate you.
All right. So we'll jump into utility fund. I guess we'll just start off on page 51. Kind of just go over an overview of that fund as a whole, and then we'll talk about some of the utility rates. So 51, we've just condensed all the detail and provided just a summary. Operating revenues, we've notated a 1% increase there, going from the $2.4 million up to $2.435. Prior year reserves, no reserves needed on this one. There's excess of $334. Customer service stayed exactly the same, 0% change from budget to budget. Operations went up $30,000. They did increase some of the repair and maintenance just because we've had some staff, new changes, new management, manhole repairs. We're just doing a lot more PM maintenance now going forward. So we've adjusted the repairs and maintenance budget on that a little bit. And then the biggest items are at the bottom, the $475,000 in capital request. And then we have the $334,000 being transferred out to the general fund to balance that budget. So I wanted us to, once again, revenues for the most part, we kept them the same. Once again, this fund is doing well as far as operations and revenues over expenditures. So we provided on page 48 a proposed rate schedule for this year for us to entertain on changing some rates. Included in this budget was we did not include any proposed rate changes for water or sewer at the moment, but we did provide a graph of what other governments are performing. On page 49, we did add a few new charges that we do provide here at the district. One of those being a full electrical panel for low pressure tanks. So our district staff will replace those panels for a cost of $400 now. We didn't have a fee before, so we've added that. Sometimes a breaker will go bad, or there's just miscellaneous pieces inside that panel that go bad, so we put a $75 service charge for any time anyone calls related to that. So you might have experienced that when that red alarm's going off or sewage is backing up. That's when this comes into play. Sometimes it's just that panel that sits on the exterior of the home that we go out there and service. And then we added an asterisk just to provide us the ability to charge vendors or residents for when they break one of our sewer or water lines on their property. We run into a situation in the past where either a fence contractor or a homeowner is building a fence, hasn't called in to locate, so we have to locate the lines, and then they hit our line. We go out there and we have to repair their line on their property, but we're not charging them because we didn't have a rate established. So all we're asking is to charge them the hourly rate plus the materials needed, just so we cover the cost of providing that service to them. Page 50, we've provided a comparison chart that shows all of the government entities nearby and what their base and usage charges are for an average consumption of 4,000 gallons. We are the cheapest water bill across the board. City of Sebring inside city limits coming in at relatively close, about 30 cents higher. So just something to keep in consideration as we go through the budget process and we're looking at revenue funding options. We do have some flexibility there as far as water and sewer rates compared to other governments. Any questions on rates or the rate schedule? Nope. So I mentioned on page 51, the summary page, there was no change to the customer service operations and then only $30,000 in operations. Do we want to go through those detail line items, or do you want to go ahead and jump into the capital expenditures?
I was fine. I mean, you're 110,000 more this year than last year, but you kind of explained it pretty well. So.
Is there a reason you went up on your contingency when we didn't use any this year?
So contingency, we have a policy manual that dictates we have to have a certain percentage. So basically, we never use that contingency. It's almost a plug expenditure, but it's in our policy manual. I think it's 1.5% or 0.5% that we're required. So we plug that number in, but really rarely gets ever utilized.
Okay.
So go ahead and jump into the capital for the utility fund, which is the $475,000 request this year. First one is the Unit 23 piping for $60,000. This project we've had in our budget, I want to say the last 2 years. We carried it last year. We have it in this year's budget. We've been working with the engineers and the original manufacturer of the Unit 23 wastewater treatment plant. And it's just been a little bit more difficult to get the scope, timing, and all the necessary components to get this thing out to RFP and completed. So we're basically just carrying it over one more year. We're hoping we may be able to get it out at the end of this year for award and bid, and then perform the services next year.
With the transition of staff, I put a hold on it, but now we're talking about it, so I think we're making some headway with the manufacturer. Am I saying that? Manufacturer?
Yeah, it's the actual original Maroff, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a carryover. The infiltration study, it's a new item. We've got it in the budget for $100,000. I'm going to try and give you the best description that I can from a utility standpoint. So I believe this primarily is the gravity system, which correlates to Unit 2 some of Unit 5, basically our older sections of Sun Lake that have the gravity piping. Some of it may be asbestos piping. So what they do is they bring in a camera, we go through, we look at all the lines and seal where there's any infiltration coming into those lines, whether it be from corrosion, breaks, but they're not visible to the eye a lot of times until you go down there and inspect it and then clean those lines and make a repair. So that's basically what that $100,000 is composed of, is going in there, doing that study, and then taking care of the repairs as needed in that section for the gravity.
So this is the study and repair?
Yes, this is everything.
This might be a several phase project, I'll just say.
Yes.
Yeah, but I would.
I think we got quoted $2 a linear foot.
Yes, it might be like I said, it might be several phases. We may not be able to go in. I mean, the gravity system itself, we have two systems out here. We have a gravity system and a low pressure system, and the areas that are the oldest, it's the gravity side. So we may take up that gravity infiltration study within several years. I don't know that we necessarily should, just because of cost. I think,
the reason I ask is if we're talking $300,000 or $400,000, then we ought to be looking at raising utility rates to pay for that over a multi-year term. When you're sitting here with a lot of money coming in and not that much going out, then you're saying, well, I don't really need to raise rates, but maybe we do.
Right.
That's really the point I was trying to get to. Is
the first estimate came in 3 days ago. Fortunately, we didn't have a real good number, but I think if you give me some time to review the map that was given to the company, but the pricing came in at $250,000. So that's a sticker shock, but let us look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I would agree that's a good reason to bring our sewer rates more in line with others. The other thing I would do is label this review and repair as needed as opposed to a study, because when I look at $100,000 for a study, I'm going, are you kidding me?
They take their video cameras in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue really is it's buried, so you don't know what you got till you get there.
That's right.
And it could be big numbers, and it might not be that big a numbers.
So it's been 5 years, 6 years, or maybe more since the last time we've had this done. So
that's going to also impact our capacity, because basically the infiltration is groundwater getting into your sewage system.
Absolutely.
Right.
Hurricane Irma, and with the water tables like they've been, the Unit 23 plant, it's in the winter season when everyone's here, that's when we see our highest capacities, but that infiltration of that plant really keeps those numbers up there. So meaning when they look at the gallons per day that flow through there, a lot of it is infiltration.
It almost has to be.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up question to that would be, would doing this work have avoided what we just ran into at Urbino?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very possibly. Very possibly. The video inspection would have caught that hole that had been there, and now it just, the hole just collapsed. So very well could have prevented that. Absolutely.
I guess the good news for me when I was talking to Tanya is, if you don't know, you don't know. So I didn't know any better than to ask. But we're basically, if you look at both plants, at about a little less than 50% capacity, even at our highest.
Not
one
the
on
Unit 4.
75,
The plant
but you
north.
add them together.
Oh, when you add them together, yes.
Yeah. One of them's at 75, one of them's at 17 or 18.
17 to 20 on the max end.
And it would be possible to interconnect them, so we really probably don't need another sewage plant for the foreseeable future.
The interconnected is not cheap either.
Yeah, that's a good thing, but interconnecting is cheaper than building new ones. So.
Tanya, when we talked, you mentioned maybe the raising of the rates. But I think if you guys take a look at that, and before the next meeting, just make a recommendation, because I'm not against it, but I'd rather put the increase in there if we're looking at that kind of money. But I don't want to bring it up because you guys know better than us, so we're not going to blame you if you think we need it. We're decide. 3 of us are, so. But I'd like you to come back with a recommendation about water rates. Okay?
You know, based on what I saw in this, the sewer rate seems to be significantly lower than the other areas, and that's what we're talking about addressing here. So if we're addressing the sewers and we're bringing our price up to the norm, I think that's acceptable.
So in December of 2012, the Board of Supervisors reduced the utility rates, and the base rate in total between the water and sewer pre-December 2012 was $31. So we're still lower now than we were pre-December 2012. So that gives you an indication. Base rates. I just lost my page. So the two base rates added together right now are $28.75, and pre-December 2012 it was $31.
So they get the credit and we get the blame. Is that the way?
That's right.
Yeah. I think addressing it is a very positive thing. So
I agree.
So the next item is the lift station grinder. We had this item in the budget 2 years ago, and they were intended for Matanzas and Edgewater. Matanzas, we later on found out that we needed a different type of pump to fix that situation, and then it ties into that Matanzas wet well. So basically what we need is a new wet well, and then we purchased 2 new pumps for that lift station. We'd never purchased the grinders based on the engineer's recommendation. We now are requesting a grinder, and I believe it's for Edgewater, and it's one of the other ones connected to one of the schools. But basically what they'll do, it'll chew up any rags, towels, anything that comes through that manhole, so it prevents it from getting to the actual treatment plant. So those are.
Yeah, we really have a problem with that right now. We're going to have to get a price on a vacuum to come in and suck the towels, because there's so much stuff in the Matanzas area right now, and I don't know why it's. I mean, not Matanzas, Edgewater, and then I don't know why it's, they're the worst, but we have to start addressing this stuff because it's costing us money for pumps and everything.
So the Matanzas wet well, as mentioned before, we had the emergency that took place, a couple weeks ago. So we're proposing a brand new wet well, $150,000 to correct that problem there. A generator replacement for one of our portable.
Before you pass that, and just as I don't know whether you've seen it or not, Mike, but where those KDL guys went across, they came in on Sunrise and went across, they tore the side of Sunrise Drive up pretty good there because they were driving big trucks across the edge of it and into that vacant lot. They couldn't get there otherwise, I guess, but we might need to take a look at that because over time it'll break.
Every week, all the contractors seem to go. I mean, everybody comes in and out of there, and either we're going to block it off or
it might not have. Well, I'm pretty sure it was them because I happen to walk dogs there, and I can see where the big tracks go in there. But bottom line is we probably need to take a look and fix that before it gets worse.
So the generator replacement is an addition of a portable generator. It's going to be a 3-phase and provide emergency backup capabilities. So they'll be able to plug it into a lift station, the restaurant, basically any of our generators that are working now.
Right now, we don't have a three-phase generator, a portable. So if something goes down, we have to rent it. So, and we have 13 or 14 generators right now. So if one goes down, we're in trouble. Again.
What does it cost to rent one?
It's about $2,500 a month, because we did get a price for one, because we have one down up in Tanglewood right now, so I did call and ask, what it would cost us. So they're pretty expensive.
Yeah, so it's $50,000. $2,500 a month. If we don't need it all the time, $50,000 is a lot of money.
That's 20 months around.
Yeah, I guess the issue though is.
But
when we need it.
But can we get it here in time? The lift station goes down and you can't flush your toilets. People are going to be calling us, guys. That's all I'm gonna tell you. I mean, I'm okay with what you want to do.
Well, again, when we need it, it's when everybody needs it. When a hurricane hits here or whatever, you're not going to be able to get one. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, again, it's not because we need a generator, it's because one of the generators we have goes down.
Right, exactly.
We have the generators. This
I
is
think
just
that's
for emergency.
probably an appropriate thing to do.
You always want to be prepared.
And then the last item is a new utility truck for $40,000. So I believe we have 3 in our fleet now. We have 5 technicians that work in the utility department. So the goal is to buy 1 this year and then buy 1 next year so they can all have their own truck and be able to do services without having to double up or just help operations going forward. Be more effective. I think that's it. The 5-year capital really didn't change much. Ray, I'm waiting for
What?
what's your shot for utility?
I got nothing.
You got nothing on utility? I think that's all I got, unless you guys have any more questions.
What is, I do have some of the 5-year. What's this for, the WWTP interconnect? I remember seeing it, but I don't remember what it is.
So that's going back to kind of what Dan mentioned is we have 75% flow to our Unit 23 plant, only 15% to the Unit 4 plant. So kind of the thought process behind that is move the elementary school and Florida Hospital from 23 to the other plant, redirect that flow in order to get them more to a 30-50% basis versus a 75-15. So that would take removing all that piping and redirecting that flow to the other wastewater treatment plant.
So that's something we're going to have to do eventually, you think?
I think it would help just alleviate some of the demand on that Unit 23 plant and then alleviate that necessity of we need something urgent or the capacity issues at Unit 23. Right now, we still feel comfortable at the 75. Like I said, that includes a lot of infiltration and different issues. So, and that's only at peak season. During off season, that goes down to 50%.
Yeah, but
So it's not critical at the moment.
Potentially, if you did a deal with Tanglewood, you'd need to do this anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's where that flow will go.
Originally, we talked about an interconnect, so I think we need to change that description on the 5-year. The interconnect was to connect the 2 plants, and I believe when I heard the first initial cost numbers, I said, well, maybe we should talk about redirection of flow versus interconnecting the 2. So, so right now we're having more discussions about this redirection of flow versus this interconnect idea. So,
Interconnect would be better, depending on what it
interconnect
costs.
would be better, but
And I assume the generator replacements are just a guess down the road? So that's, why do you think we're going to need 2 more?
We have generators that are the age, right? They're getting old, so we want to start replacing them before they go on us.
And the replacements are 50,000? I thought,
Depending what size they are, Ray, it could be 34, there's 3 different size generators that we use here.
okay. And what's the utility truck next year? Or, I'm sorry, 2020?
That's to get us to that 3 to 5. Right now, we only have 3 trucks.
Oh, you want to get to 5?
We have 5 employees. 5 employees, only 3 trucks. So some of them are having to double up or use a gator. So if we need repairs or we need MTU reads, we can't send an extra guy. So we're trying to get 1 this year. That'll get us to 4. And then next year we'll get us to 5. We'll have 5 for all of our 5 technicians. And we can send them all out individually.
Right. And then we don't have 2 people riding the truck, and I get called, why are 2 guys in the truck?
That's fine. And then I assume we're going to go to 6 guys in a 6 truck 5 years from now.
If
Well,
we
you got a truck.
sell a lot of houses,
Even took into consideration inflation. I think that's great. The cost of the trucks now go to $45,000. I think that's great. What?
We keep all anything we need when we go to a house in it, and it's a lot easier to have stuff with the new guy.
What's high service pumps for $350,000? What is high service pumps for $350,000. Pardon me? I don't know.
That's the pumps at the water plant to replace those high service pumps. That's all I can tell you. I'm not going into more detail on
Can
that.
anybody tell me?
We'll have to wait for Drew or
To
Israel.
wait for our engineers.
And it's something we think we need to do in the next year?
Yes.
So, let me know what they are, okay?
And then, as long as we're on this 5-year plan, it sounded to me like we need to relook at the infiltration study and spread that with more
Now
expense.
that I've seen that first quote, yeah, that's an eye-opener, so.
Was that 200,000 that you have in 22, is that part of the same study, or did you already spread it a little bit, or is that something else?
I just think we need to move some of it forward.
I think it's going to have to,
May have to make it bigger and move some forward? I mean, if it's right to do, we should do it.
No, I agree. We're going to look at it, and bring it back to you at the next meeting.
And at the same time, we'll look at utility rates.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So overall, we're still 400,000 that we have to take out of reserves, roughly. I mean, we'll see what the numbers look like next time.
Less the golf fund,
Huh?
less the golf fund changes.
Changes.
Well,
That should
some-
be 100, probably. So we should be about 350. Something like that.
He's going to carve another $100,000 out of the general fund, right?
Something, I don't know. He's got. I think there should be 100,000, but we'll see what he says. I think there should be at least. I agree with Dan. There should be at least 100,000 for the golf fund.
The real issue gets to be, it's still budget as opposed to reality. So you have to sit down and look at it. Okay, does this make sense once we get it all put together? Yeah. And that's where we'll come up with the final number. I'm willing to let it slide now, but sooner or later we're going to have to say, hey, this is a hard number, and we're going to have that same conversation with Cliff. I get it. This is the first day that a new restaurant, a new tables, new everything, but somehow we got to make some sense out of those numbers, and we just can't keep beating up golf over it.
Your numbers. Now, trust me on my math. I know you hate this. The general fund is going to be has a plus 29,000. The utility fund has a plus of 334,000, and the golf fund has a minus $750,000. That's our totals. Golf fund is absurd. Absurd. So you can raise the utilities all you want, but you're really raising the utilities to cover the golf fund.
Because I think we're close. Honestly, going into this budget, it's optimistic. We're only $300,000 deficit budget-wise. Golf course is important. Restaurants important. So we're right there. We're close. It's not going to take a lot to make some adjustments. Last year was a lot scarier at $2.4 million.
You're missing this. The golf fund's running at a negative $750,000.
But
we can cover it with the other funds, but still.
Yeah, we've got to
This is just first pass. I mean, does anybody sitting here really think we're going to let it sit at 750? I don't.
Oh, I bet we will.
Well, you might be 4-1, but I can tell you one guy that's going to vote against it.
Well, I'm not going to vote for it, but I didn't vote for it.
Well, there you go. It only takes 3. So, I mean, we got to figure out.
I hope you're right. We'll see.
There's got to be a negative, and this is the first year in because we don't really know what it's going to do. And, I mean, we could say you're going to put another $500,000 worth of sales and budget the whole thing, or $2 million worth of sales. But the bottom line is we got to be realistic. Yeah. But it also has to be realistic on the other end. You're not going to go and put another $150,000 worth of expenses in the restaurant salaries and not go up any more in sales than they projected. So one way or another, somebody's got to get real, and that's where we are, I think. And this is the first pass. Hey, everybody fudges. I get it. I did. But, that's the way it is. But sooner or later, you got to come to reality.
Yes.
But that is kind of scary, that infiltration study.
Yes.
And that's just part of it, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's part of our system. That's only, I believe the entire gravity system was quoted out at $2 per linear foot, which was the 250,000. That's not, the gravity system is only Unit 2, Unit 5. It flows through
It's Sunrise, around Sunrise, and
half of Sunrise. That's even stranger. I don't know what happened there, but only that end of Sunrise has the gravity system. The other,
right.
I guess the northern part has the low pressure, which is, yeah, strange. So that part of it was not even included in the quote that we were receiving. So
part of Matanzas is gravity.
I got a number. I got a number for you guys.
Matanzas is gravity.
Since I'm all full of numbers, here's one more number. The general fund, the expenses this year are $3,740,500. Okay, that's the general fund. Yeah, budget. The golf budget is $4,532,000. So the golf budget is by far $800,000, our largest fund in expenses. It does include the restaurant.
Yeah, and again.
But it doesn't include the capital.
Who's reinventing their business career here?
God, I don't need another one.
I know. Me either.
I get paid a lot more than this. Yeah.
Joe's the only thing sitting between us and lunch. Joe.
Joe.
Pull the
Joe.
trigger, please. Joe.
Joey, hit it. Not that.